Look at those lush coniferous forests and tundra. What a wonderland. You may have mistakenly thought it's Canada, but it's not. It's Antarctica, about 34 million years ago. So what makes Antarctica this frigid today? It turns out a mix of dropping carbon dioxide levels and some tectonic shuffle played a huge role in transforming this ice-free paradise into the frozen continent we know now. About 50 million years ago, CO2 concentrations were sky high, strutting around at around 1,000 to 2,000 parts per million. But as those levels tumbled down, global temps started to drop, paving the way for the mighty ice sheets that later took over Antarctica. While the CO2 dive was happening, tectonic activity was also working its magic. The big split between South America and Antarctica opened up the Drake Passage, which created the Antarctic Circumpolar Current. This powerful current acted like a bouncer, keeping warm air and ocean currents from crashing the Antarctic party, and helping keep things rather frosty. If you mix up Australia and Antarctica, you're not that wrong. These two continents used to be one. If you mix up Austria and Australia, it's much worse. By the way, don't fall for the internet myths and memes. There's no help desk in Austria specifically for people who intended to fly to Australia. Now, look at this magnificent Australian pink beach. It's precious, and not in a figurative sense. Those mysterious pinkish sands are actually garnet, and it's widely used in jewelry. Geologists studied those sands and came to the conclusion that the garnet contained there is older than local mountains. That doesn't make sense, right? In fact, it does. You see, Australia didn't used to be this very detached continent as it is now. Many millions of years ago, Australia and Antarctica were part of the supercontinent Gondwana, and glacial erosion released the garnet, which eventually made its way to the beach. These sands formed when South Australia was flat and chill, long before the mountains appeared. Most garnet gets washed away, but this batch has a rich history, tracing back to glacial rocks in the Transantarctic Mountains. So this pink sand comes from an ancient mountain range hidden under Antarctic ice. Not only does Antarctica ice hide gems like garnet, if you look harder, you might find entire buildings. Sounds insane, but this is exactly what a British explorer did. His name is Chris Brown, and he uncovered an entire building beneath the ice. He was traveling to the pole of inaccessibility, and it all started with a bummer. Chris and his son had their plane broken. Suddenly, they spotted a lone bust peeking out of the snow. This place was an old meteorological station. Despite freezing conditions, Chris and his son Micah had a blast exploring. Chris is on a mission to conquer all 7 earthbound poles of inaccessibility and has tackled 5 so far. I guess you already know that Antarctica is the largest desert on Earth, much larger than the Sahara or the Gobi. Still, despite being the driest continent on Earth, it boasts a seriously weird waterfall. Nestled in the mesmerizing McMurdo Dry Valleys, it's 5 stories tall and looks like it's gushing blood. It's even called Blood Falls. It may look outlandish and even frightening, but its nature can be easily explained. The water that creates this crimson cascade was once a salty lake, but over time, it became sealed off from the outside world when glaciers formed on top of it. Now, this ancient water hanging out 1,300 feet below the surface has cranked up its salt levels to 3 times saltier than the ocean. This salt water is also loaded with iron and gets 0 oxygen or sunlight. When the iron-rich water trickles through a crack in the glacier and meets the air, it rusts up, turning dark red. You may have mistakenly heard that no bug species belongs to Antarctica, but it's not exactly true, because there's this tiny Antarctic midge living there. Plus, there are some spiders too. Those aren't your average spiders hanging out in the darkest corners of your apartment. Those are critters lurking in the chilly darkness of the Antarctic ocean floor. These little marine creepers are actually arthropods and can stretch around 20 inches across. As if that wasn't bizarre enough, they also breathe through little holes in their legs. Quick question. What's the color that you associate most with Antarctica? I'm sure it's white. That's my association too. However, Antarctica may look like a slice of watermelon. That colorful snow comes courtesy of a tough little algae called Chlamydomonas nivalis. When things start to warm up during the Antarctic summer, these little guys release their vibrant red and green spores, painting the snow in wild and funky colors. But it's best to steer clear because that snow is not just a pretty sight. It's also toxic and definitely not edible. Searching for fossils is always a blast, but when you're in one of the most remote spots on the planet, it gets even more exciting. A diverse team of scientists recently hit the mother lode, pulling in over a ton of fossils from ancient marine life, dinosaurs, and birds from the late Cretaceous period, about 71 million years ago. Their adventure kicked off with a flight to South America, followed by a 5-day trek through the infamous Drake Passage. Upon reaching Antarctica, they set up camp using helicopters and inflatable boats. You might be thinking, why dig in Antarctica with all that ice? Well, it turns out there are places where rocks pop up, depending on the season. The team went to James Ross Island, located in the Antarctic Peninsula, and they went there during February and March. And that's one of the few parts of Antarctica where in summer, rocks are exposed, and those rocks can come from the age of dinosaurs. The expedition was a success, as they discovered over a ton of remarkable finds. Next up, the fossils will head to Chile before making their way to Pittsburgh's Carnegie Museum of Natural History. Among their discoveries, they found relics dating back about 71 million years, alongside some around 67 million years old, including plenty of snails, clams, and various marine creatures. Yikes! Look at this creepy sea worm. It could live in LA and be a star in a horror movie, but it chooses to call the chilly waters of the Southern Ocean near Antarctica its home. These worms can grow up to 8 inches long and 4 inches wide, but don't let their spooky exterior trick you. Research suggests they might actually be superheroes in disguise, playing a vital role in keeping ecosystems buzzing. Now, see that head? It's not really a head, it's just a retractable throat that helps this toothy creature chow down on its meals. Antarctica has many creepy critters to offer. Let me introduce you to the Antarctic strawberry feather star. It's not like Patrick from SpongeBob though. It's more like a deep-sea creature straight out of a horror movie. Picture this, 20 wiggly arms, some stretching up to 8 inches, all decked out with these bizarre little bumps. Yikes indeed. Back in 2014, scientists buried 34 seismic monitors in the snow on the Ross Ice Shelf, which is huge. Think of it as an ice slab the size of Texas, just chilling over the Southern Ocean. These clever little machines picked up a nearly non-stop buzzing. Even though our human ears usually can't catch these low-frequency sounds, scientists have worked their magic and made them audible for us. They even shared the creepy audio online. A glaciologist from the University of Chicago says that if you could hear this vibration, it'd sound like a swarm of cicadas taking over the backyard in late summer. But these glacier explorers weren't trying to capture spooky tunes. They're actually on a mission to monitor the Ross Ice Shelf because things are heating up, literally, and the ice is melting faster than ice cream on a hot day. Ice shelves are like Earth's safety plugs, keeping all that massive ice from surging into the ocean. So what exactly is making all that noise? It's likely just strong winds whipping across ice dunes, creating a kind of natural vibration.
So, dark matter is a mysterious substance that makes up about 85% of the total matter in the universe, yet we can't see it or touch it. The regular matter that we're used to forms stars, planets, and everything around us. But dark matter doesn't emit, absorb, or reflect light, which is why we can't even see it. We don't even know if it actually exists. The reason why we believe in dark matter is because it leaves gravitational effects on galaxies and other cosmic objects. For example, spiral galaxies spin in a way that doesn't match the law of physics we know. According to our current knowledge, the outer edges of these galaxies should slow down, but they don't. They either keep the same speed or even speed up. It also seems to be acting like an invisible glue that holds galaxies together. If dark matter didn't add some invisible gravitational mass, the galaxies would literally break apart, not being able to hold stars together. But even though it's fundamentally important for our world, we still don't know exactly what dark matter is made of. This has been going on for years. Some experiments saw hints of it, but no one's been able to prove it beyond a doubt. Maybe the future circular collider will be able to find it. There's a mysterious force in space that seems to be pulling our entire galaxy, along with many others, toward it. This force is known as the Great Attractor. Wink wink. It's a crazy massive region in space, about 10 million billion times the mass of our Sun, with a super powerful gravitational pull. Scientists think it might be a super cluster of galaxies, but they're not sure. The problem is, we can't see it directly because it's hidden behind the Milky Way, while the Milky Way itself, horrifyingly, is moving toward it at a speed of about 370 miles per hour. Now, just like with dark matter, we only know it's there because of how it affects the movement of galaxies around it. These galaxies are being pulled toward this region, even though, since the universe is expanding, they should be moving away from each other. What's even weirder is that this Great Attractor might itself be moving towards something even bigger, the Shapley supercluster. It's the largest concentration of galaxies in our nearby universe. In 2017, astronomers discovered a strange object called Oumuamua. This was the first known visitor from another star system. The thing was quite small, from about 330 feet to about 0.6 miles long. It was also long and thin, had a reddish color, and moved in a very unusual way. As it passed by the Sun, it unexpectedly sped up and then left our solar system just like that. Tons of theories started sparking up. It was too weird looking for an asteroid. Scientists thought it might be a comet, but it didn't have the usual traits of one, like a tail of gas and dust. Eventually, some scientists even started to suggest the wildest theories, like it might be an extraterrestrial probe. People have been making a huge fuss about Oumuamua ever since. But after a while, it turned out it was just a natural object with unique properties. It was probably a fragment from a distant star system, like a piece of a disintegrated comet or even a chunk of a planet. But Oumuamua caught everyone's attention so much that in 2022, astronomers even proposed to send a spacecraft to catch up with it. This mission could take about 26 years. Hey, stay tuned. Now, as for extraterrestrial creatures, where is everyone? There's this thing called the rare Earth hypothesis that suggests that life as we know it is actually super rare in space. In the 70s and 80s, scientists argued that Earth is just an ordinary planet in an ordinary solar system. If we look at it this way, life should be widespread across the universe. It seems unreasonable to think that with trillions of planets out there, there will be no planet like ours anywhere. But then, a geologist, Peter Ward, argued that the development of complex life like ours depends on a very rare combination of things. The history of the planet, with all of its astrophysical and geological conditions, should line up perfectly for complex life to develop. So just think about it. Being in the right zone of the galaxy, on a good distance around a stable star, a rocky planet with water and the right temperature, emergence of molecules, monkeys deciding to walk, and so on. This would explain the Fermi paradox, which asks, if extraterrestrial life is common, why haven't we seen any signs of it? Well, the rare Earth hypothesis explains it. The universe might be full of plants, extraterrestrial critters, and fun animals. But would there be an intelligent species like humans? That's another story. As for humans being intelligent, that's another matter. Dark matter? And even if they do exist, we could be incredibly far away from each other. That would make communication or contact with other intelligent species very unlikely. Now, there's another similar theory called the Great Filter. This idea says that there might be a big obstacle somewhere along the path from microbes to advanced civilizations. It was the idea of the economist Robin Hanson. He also believed that maybe intelligent life, as we know it, isn't that common in the universe, although he assumed it's not because our planet was the result of tons of unique conditions, but because there must be some sort of filter that reduces the chance of life progressing to our point. Who knows where this filter is? It might be in the stage of early microbes, which means that we managed to get through it or somehow ahead in the future, which means we might go extinct like many other species before us. Well, maybe in the next stages, such as colonizing other planets and the galaxy, are much harder, if not impossible. Something unexpected might come up, potential catastrophes, resource exhaustion, or other challenges. Now, there's this thing called a pulsar. It's a weird type of star that sends out regular bursts of radio waves, like a flickering space lighthouse. You see, in space you often find a pulsar and a smaller companion star that rotates around it. But one day, scientists discovered this system, which was also surrounded by tons of some energetic material. They suddenly realized that these are probably the remains of another companion star, which was very big in size. But the pulsar was blasting out powerful radiation and particles, slowly consuming its companion. This is kind of like how a black widow spider eats its mate, hence the name. Since then, they've found other similar systems. They've grouped them all into one spider family. There are also redback pulsars, which destroy slightly larger companions, and huntsman pulsars, which have companions that are massive enough to resist being completely destroyed. Even though so many safety measures are taken, space is still an unpredictable place where we don't have as much power as we'd like to. Back in 1973, during a spacewalk on the Skylab space station, 2 astronauts were in a very risky situation. They were out in space fixing things, but they didn't have the same handy jetpacks like astronauts do today. They could only rely on safety tethers. Suddenly, the solar arrays they were working on moved unexpectedly and pushed them out of their position, almost sending them drifting off into space. Thankfully, the safety ropes did their job. Strong, resistant to heat, and attached to astronauts' waists, these tethers can hold a weight of about 881 pounds. This accident happened before SAFER came into use. It's easy to understand why accidents at work are way scarier up there than some regular 9-to-5 job on Earth. But that's why you have more training and special equipment to keep you safe. First, astronauts are always attached to the spacecraft with tethers, so they don't float away like a helium balloon. It may seem like a spacewalk is such a big deal that the ISS needs to stop when the astronauts are out there doing their thing, but it's not like that. If the ISS were ever to stop, it would fall straight down to our planet. So, once an astronaut is in a stable orbit, they stay in that orbit, unless some new force acts out. The first spacewalk wasn't as simple as those done later. It was performed in 1965, and it lasted 12 minutes. 2 men set out on a mission. One of them was supposed to float in space for a while taking pictures. But things went wrong. His spacesuit expanded too much, making it hard to move. He started to feel overheated, so he had to let some oxygen out of his suit, which was very risky. He could run out of air or get sick like a deep-sea diver. Getting back into the spacecraft was tough as well, but he somehow managed to do it. Then, more problems came. The spacecraft started spinning, oxygen levels rose dangerously, and there was a risk of an explosion. After a lot of struggle, they made it back to Earth, but landed in a random forest surrounded by wolves and bears during a snowstorm. It took a rescue party to find them. Not a very encouraging story to listen to while you're waiting to go out. But cheer up, things have improved since then. Hundreds of astronauts have taken spacewalks without any serious problems. So here you are, whizzing right along with the giant ISS. Your first spacewalk goes almost flawlessly, so you can enjoy the view a bit. It's hard to control the way you move, but tethers still do their job, so you can focus on your task. Until you realize they failed. How did they untie? You notice you're floating off in some random direction. There's nothing you can hold on to. Your body is weightless, and it has started to spin around. It's so frustrating when you can't take control of your movements. An astronaut named Scott Kelly described this unpleasant feeling in his book Endurance. He was turning around and upside down in the darkness and could see nothing but what was right there in front of his face. It was like a scuba diver floating in murky waters, totally disoriented, with no way of telling which direction was wrong and which one could be right. In space, you can't kick or flail to change your course. It might be fun floating inside a spacecraft with zero gravity, playing and fooling around, but seeing just the endless void filled with stars in the distance and knowing what could happen makes it frightening. And now you're getting closer to Earth's atmosphere. It might seem like the safest option because it makes you feel like you're going home, but in reality, you better hope you'll change direction. If your angle and speed are wrong, you might re-enter the planet's atmosphere and burn up. Not a good deal. NASA trains astronauts for such situations, so you know what's your next step: activating an emergency jetpack called SAFER. This tool is designed to help you stabilize and move in space. You don't even need the tethers. You can control the movements of your jetpack with a small joystick. Finally, all those hours of playing video games will pay off. These jetpacks became an inevitable part of the spacewalk package almost 30 years ago. So far, no astronaut has had to use one during a spacewalk. Whew! You're back on track, and you're moving away from Earth's atmosphere. You're getting closer to the ISS, flying manually. Oops! These jetpacks have one big flaw. They have a limited amount of fuel, and your SAFER has just run out of it. Okay, take a deep breath. One of the most important things every astronaut has to learn is to be prepared for literally anything. This strange radio signal wasn't found by a scientist on a serious mission. It was actually discovered by a college student just doing a regular project for school. Tyrone O'Doherty, an undergrad student at Curtin University in Australia, was sifting through old data of the southern sky. He was looking for any weird blinking radio signals. He finally stumbled upon one from 2018 that seemed to shoot radio waves towards Earth like a lighthouse beam. Excited about his find, Tyrone shared it with his mentor, radio astronomer Natasha Hurley-Walker. She dove into researching this signal, hoping for a breakthrough. But despite checking different frequency data, they hit a dead end. But then, Natasha spotted a pattern. The signal repeated every 18 minutes. This was huge. But just as they were gearing up to study it further, poof! The signal vanished after only 3 months, leaving them with nothing. Not giving up, Natasha and her team scanned the skies again, desperate for a clue. Months passed, but nothing turned up. They were ready to give up, and then suddenly, a new signal popped up. This one kept blinking for 5 minutes, then it disappeared. And then it came back exactly 22 minutes later. The main question was if that signal was related to an 18-minute one. To figure it out, Natasha went back to the old radio data from that area. As they dug deeper, they realized that yes, and these signals aren't anything new. They'd been beaming towards Earth for 35 years. Back in 1988, Indian and American telescopes had caught them, but they got buried under tons of other data. This was great news for space explorers because it meant they could now calculate how far away this mysterious object was. After doing the math, they figured out it was incredibly far, even on a space scale, 15,000 light-years from Earth. Now, the only thing left to uncover was what exactly this object was. Walker and his team started comparing it to all the known radio-emitting objects out there. Yet its source remains a mystery. The signals still pop up every 22 minutes on NASA screens, always ending with a frustrating match not found message. The scientists called it J183910. Some think that the signal might come from some extraterrestrial beings. Maybe it's the signal that SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, has been waiting for. This project has been working for over 50 years, trying to find any evidence of life beyond Earth. They also scan the skies for radio waves, laser pulses, and other mysterious signals. So maybe it's a way for extraterrestrial folk to communicate their location. Over billions of years, the surface of the moon has been hit by asteroids and comets, causing bits and pieces to constantly break off from the impacts. Because of this, all the surface material is pretty loosely packed. So when there are quakes, slopes in the same area can become susceptible to landslides or new faults opening up. Future settlements located too close to these unstable slopes could put everyone living inside these lunar bases at risk. Moon dust adds another layer of complexity because, without erosion or water to smooth it out, it can harden to the point of being as tough as glass. If we really want to understand how dangerous moonquakes might be for people living and working on the moon in the future, space agencies still need to map out and get new seismic data, and not just from the South Pole, but from the entire satellite. In 2025, the Farside Seismic Sweep Mission, or FSS, plans to deploy two of the most high-precision seismometers ever built to the Schrödinger crater, which is located on the dark side of the moon. Finding out what's happening on the ground there is crucial for understanding the complex lunar structure and its internal dynamics. Scientists are still trying to figure out whether the lack of recorded seismic activity on the far side of the moon is due to current instruments not being capable of detecting it, or if it's due to some kind of interference from melted material in the mantle. Once they have this answer, it will be easier to fully understand the phenomenon of shallow moonquakes and assess their implications for future neighborhoods on our natural satellite. Now, you may have heard that Earth is also shrinking, but it's a different process. Basically, the moon is getting smaller mainly because its core is cooling down naturally. The Earth's core is cooling too, but our planet got its crust with tectonic plates, unlike the moon, which only has one plate. So the energy from Earth's core shifts those plates around or comes through volcanic eruptions. Earth is actually losing mass overall due to atmospheric loss. Our planet loses about 100 million pounds of mass per year, mostly from a leaky atmosphere. Earth's gravity isn't strong enough to retain the lightest particles, like hydrogen and helium, which escape into space. But don't worry, these numbers aren't cause for alarm, considering that our planet's atmosphere weighs about 5 quadrillion tons, a number I can't even imagine. So, in other words, it would take many, many, many times the current age of the universe for it to completely evaporate. We found a water cloud in space around a black hole. It's a gigantic water reservoir that's located about 12 billion light-years away from Earth. This must be the largest and farthest water reservoir ever detected in the universe. This one cloud contains an astonishing 140 trillion times more water than all of Earth's oceans combined. That's wet. The water surrounds a quasar, which is basically an incredibly energetic supermassive black hole. This quasar is about 20 billion times larger than the Sun and emits as much energy as 1,000 trillion suns. You do the math. As the black hole slowly consumes everything around it, it releases energy. This energy heats the surrounding gases and dust, causing the formation of water vapor. As a result, the black hole is surrounded by a huge water cloud and all the other gases and dust bath around it. This pair formed when the universe was only 1.6 billion years old, just a fraction of its current age. That means that the water isn't young at all and has been existing in galaxies for billions of years now. This quasar will only keep getting scarier and bigger. If it eats up all this gas and dust around, it could grow up to 6 times its current size, potentially becoming 120 billion times larger than the Sun. Think about that. At first, it may seem like the Sun is burning, but it's actually not true, because the burning of our star isn't chemical combustion, it's nuclear fusion. The Sun can't run out of oxygen or stop burning because it doesn't use oxygen to burn. Regular carbon combustion requires oxygen. As soon as there's no oxygen, the process of burning stops. Now imagine a candle. If you cover it, it doesn't have access to oxygen anymore, and the process of burning stops. But in nuclear fusion, the nuclei of atoms are fused together to make new, bigger nuclei. Such changes cause atoms to become new elements. Nuclear fusion doesn't require oxygen or any other material altogether. You just need enough pressure or heat to squeeze the nuclei of atoms close enough for them to overcome their electrostatic repulsion and bond into one nucleus. In 2027, two teams of astronomers discovered a cloud of water floating in open space. It was the largest and farthest reservoir of water ever detected in the universe. It's a cloud of water vapor surrounding a huge black hole called a quasar, 12 billion light-years away from Earth. The environment around the quasar must be unique to somehow produce such giant masses of water. It was formed by energy waves colliding hydrogen and oxygen atoms together. The cloud contains 140 trillion times the entire volume of water on our planet. It could provide each person on our planet with a planet's worth of water 20,000 times over. Wow! Even cooler, astronomers believe this water cloud appeared just 1.6 billion years later than the universe itself. Scientists consider it another demonstration that water exists throughout the universe and was present already during its early days. At the same time, before this discovery, scientists had never found water vapor present so far back in the early universe. There is water in our home Milky Way galaxy, but most of it is frozen in ice. Not only water is floating out there in space, alcohol too. In 2009, scientists were examining a massive cloud of gas and dust in the center of our galaxy when they stumbled upon a surprise. There was ethyl formate within the cloud. This chemical is responsible for the sweet flavor of raspberries. They also found one more cool region. This one was brimming with ethyl alcohol, the same type found in many beverages. At the North Pole of Saturn, a mysterious storm is raging. It's ginormous, spanning an area larger than our planet and showcasing a beautiful but baffling hexagonal pattern. No one has understood yet why the storm has such a bizarre shape. After the hexagon was first discovered in 1987, it remained hidden in darkness up to the moment when sunlight exposed it again. Soon afterward, the Cassini spacecraft, designed to explore the Saturn system, provided a series of captivating images and even a video of the hexagonal storm. It turned out to be colossal in size. Its estimated depth is around 180 miles, and the eye of the storm is 50 times as large as the typical storm on Earth. The storm is also changing its color from blue to gold. Winds of hydrogen and ammonia surround the storm and move at more than 300 miles per hour. The storm has several centers. Some of them move clockwise, and others follow a counterclockwise direction. The largest vortex appears to be white, and it's twice larger than the standard hurricane on our planet. As for the hexagon itself, it's a jet stream made up of atmospheric gases. Experts refer to it as just a current of air and weather features. But there is one intriguing detail: a vortex sitting at a higher altitude than Saturn's clouds. It looks like a large towering structure. Saturn's auroras, triggered by the planet's magnetic field, are located atop of the hexagon, giving its appearance a mystical vibe. Astronomers have found a giant, likely active volcano near Mars's equator. It was literally hiding in plain sight. It's ancient and deeply eroded, but seems to be still functioning. There may even be remnants of a glacier ice near its base. That's why this discovery might indicate a promising new location to search for life, as well as a potential destination for future human and robotic exploration. The structure is still awaiting its official name. At the moment, it's referred to as the Noctis volcano. It reaches a height of 29,600 feet and spans an impressive 280 miles across. Such a giant size indicates that the volcano has been active for a very long time. In its southeastern part, there's a thin, recent volcanic deposit, and beneath, glacier ice might still be present. At a distance of 700 million light-years away from Earth, there's a gaping hole, a blank void with no galaxies, stars, planets, or asteroids, literally nothing. The void is a roughly spherical region about 330 million light-years across. Our home Milky Way galaxy could fit there billions of times over. That's the mysterious Boötes Void. It lies in the constellation of Boötes, the herdsman driving the plow around the North Pole. At first, this void had the name of the Great Nothing, but later it was given its current name. Now, we know that galaxies look like a giant web. Most of them are parts of long structures called filaments. Those wind through the cosmos, and when they meet, they form regions with a high concentration of galaxies. These regions are what we know as galaxy clusters, but between these clusters and threads, there are enormous empty voids that hardly contain any galaxies. Such voids actually make up almost 80% of the observable universe, and most of them are huge, from 30 to 300 million light-years wide. The Boötes Void is one of the most massive ones. It has even earned the title of supervoid. Astronomers think it might be the result of a few smaller voids merging together. There is a diamond planet out there that orbits a star in the constellation of Cancer, completing one full rotation in a mere 18 Earth hours. The planet's scientific name is 55 Cancri E. The radius of this faraway world is twice as large as Earth's, and its mass is 8 times greater. The planet is scorching hot, the temperatures on the day side reaching almost 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. But the coolest thing about 55 Cancri E is that, according to some specialists, at least a third of the planet's mass could be diamond. That's the equivalent of around 3 masses of our home planet. Sounds like big money floating out there in space. How about we calculate how much this planet could be worth? Wait, someone has already done it, and the number is astronomical, pun intended, of course. It's 26.9 nonillion, and if you're confused by this number as I am, that's 26.9 followed by 30 zeros. Now, for comparison, one of the most expensive diamonds on Earth ever is the Cullion. It costs a whopping $2 billion, and its original weight was a mind-boggling 3,106.75 carats. It was, and still is, the largest raw gem diamond ever found. Later, it was cut into many small diamonds. The largest of them is Cullion 1, which also goes by the name of Star of Africa. It has a carat weight of about 530, but imagine how much bigger and more expansive the Diamond Planet is. Nebulas are gigantic clouds of gas and dust, and some of them can have really unusual shapes, as if they were made this way on purpose. With time, gravity starts to pull these clumps of dust and gas together. They grow larger and larger, and their gravity gets more powerful. One day, this mass becomes so big that it collapses under its own gravity and forms new stars. Among some of the most beautiful nebulas out there, we must mention the Butterfly Nebula. Its wingspan is more than 3 light-years, and the structure inside the nebula is one of the most complicated ever observed. The central star, a white dwarf, is heated to an incredible 450,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It means it formed from a giant gargantuan star, likely more than 5 times the size of our Sun. The white dwarf is surrounded by a thick disk of dust and gas at the equator. It's what probably makes the whole structure look like an hourglass, or a butterfly. The Ring Nebula looks like a giant cloud of dust and gas surrounding an old, almost extinguished star. At first sight, it does look like a ring, but astronomers say the nebula isn't a bagel, it's a jelly-filled donut. They must be hungry. The deep space colorful object, more than 2,000 light-years away from Earth, is actually a ring that wraps around a blue ball-shaped structure. Each end of the structure sticks out of the ring's opposite sides. The pillars of creation look like something out of this world. See for yourself. They're located 7,000 light-years away from Earth in the Eagle Nebula. That's a young cluster of stars just 5.5 million years old. On a space scale, they're just babies. Once, the Hubble Space Telescope managed to take an image of several dark silhouettes near the nebula's center. And now you can see them with your own eyes. Those are the so-called pillars of creation, an active star-forming region. Look at this famous image. The blue colors represent oxygen, red is sulfur, and green means the presence of both hydrogen and nitrogen. The pillars are also bathed in the ultraviolet light coming from a nearby cluster of young stars. Unfortunately, the winds from those stars are slowly but steadily eroding the magnificent towers of gas and dust. Far out in space, a ghostly, super-ancient galaxy is floating all alone. It shines with a faint glimmer of starlight and has hardly changed for billions of years. Astronomers have no idea why it's there or how it formed. Meet DGSATI, a living fossil galaxy. It's as big as the Milky Way, but is nearly invisible because its stars are spread out incredibly thinly. But what makes the galaxy so unique is that it's sitting all alone, unlike other galaxies of this kind, which are usually found in clusters. It might mean that DGSATI was formed in a different era, probably a mere 1 billion years after the Big Bang. If it's true, the galaxy is a real living fossil. Astronomers have discovered the most massive stellar black hole ever spotted in our home Milky Way galaxy. This newly found space monster is 33 times bigger than the Sun and sits 2,000 light-years away from us. Until recently, the largest stellar black hole found residing in our galaxy has been around 20 times as big as our star in terms of mass. As for the average stellar mass black hole, it's usually about 10 times as hefty as the Sun. Scientists spotted the giant black hole after a star started to wobble while orbiting in that area. The black hole got the name of Gaia BH3. The proximity of this space object to Earth makes it the second closest to our planet black hole ever discovered. The nearest one is called Gaia BH1. Makes sense? It's hanging out around 1,560 light-years away from us. This uncomfortably close neighbor has a mass of around 9.6 times that of the Sun. That means it's way smaller than the newly found black hole. Gaia BH3 is located in the Aquila constellation. From Earth, it seems to have the shape of an eagle. Interestingly, astronomers didn't expect to find a high-mass black hole lurking so relatively close to Earth and remaining undetected for so long. Now look at this marvelous exoplanet. It resembles a giant eyeball hanging out there in space. But it isn't the coolest thing about it. This distant world, identified in 2017, is one of the most promising places for finding life outside our solar system. The exoplanet is called LHS 1140b, and it shows signs of having a global ocean capped in ice. It's that very iris, a huge region around 2,500 miles across, which is constantly gazing at its host star. The planet has a radius of about 1.73 times the radius of Earth, and is 5.6 times as massive as our home planet. The giant eyeball planet orbits much more closely to its star than Earth does. It needs just around 25 days to complete an entire orbit. If the star were similar to our Sun, such a distance would definitely be too close for life to appear on the planet. But instead, it's a cool and dim red dwarf. That's why the exoplanet lies in the habitable zone of its star, where it's not so cold that all surface water would freeze, and not so close that this water would steam away. At the moment, LHS 1140b looks like the most promising candidate for hosting life in our planetary neighborhood. Solar flares are extremely powerful bursts of electromagnetic radiation that can last from minutes to hours. They occur when there's some magnetic disturbance in the sun. Then, magnetic field lines in the atmosphere of our star get tangled and snap. This releases giant amounts of excess energy, including ultraviolet radiation and intense X-rays. These twisted lines appear in sunspots. Those are darker and cooler regions on the surface of the sun. They form when magnetic fields that used to hide deep within our star rise up to the surface. As for coronal mass ejections, or CMEs, which are launched by solar flares, they're sent outward into space. They hit planets, satellites, and basically any objects in their path. Those that come across Earth trigger geomagnetic storms, which in most cases result not only in beautiful auroras, but also in power grid failures and satellite malfunctions. All these extreme solar phenomena, CMEs, sunspots, and solar flares, get much more intense during the peak of the sun's 11-year-long activity cycle. It's known as solar maximum. Right before this event, the sun steps up its activity. It starts to spit out giant blobs of fiery plasma, emits powerful streams of radiation, and grows planet-sized spots. At first, experts were sure that the current solar cycle would reach its peak in 2025. But judging by recent numerous sunspots, intense solar storms, and some other rare solar phenomena, solar maximum is likely to arrive sooner than that. This planet is as light as a piece of fluff stuck to your jacket. In the scientific world, its name is WASP 193b, but we'll call it the Cotton Candy Planet. It's located around 1,200 light-years from us. We'll never see it with our own eyes, but scientists say the Cotton Candy Planet is pretty much Jupiter's bigger, bouncier cousin. It has an extremely low density. Combined with other factors, like its high temperature and the infrared brightness of its host star, it makes it special. Interestingly, the planet's radius is just 1.46 times the radius of Jupiter, but its mass is a mere 0.139 times of our gas giant. May I have a close-up here, please? Thank you. See how fluffy it is? It would be absolutely impossible to stand on its surface should you ever reach this distant world. It's not often that you can meet something like WASP 193b at a planetary party. Such planets are rare. Their fluffiness might be caused by their planet stars. Those heat them, puffing them up like a marshmallow that's seen too much campfire action. The planet's super low density makes it a real anomaly among those 5,000 plus exoplanets we have already discovered. So, you want to get as close to the moon as possible without leaving Earth? Easy. Hop on a plane to Ecuador and climb Mount Chimborazo. I know, it may sound weird, but hear me out. Now, Everest is the tallest mountain when you're measuring from sea level, but Chimborazo's peak is actually the closest spot on Earth to the moon. Here's the physics behind it. Mount Everest is over 29,000 feet tall, and Chimborazo is only around 20,000 feet. But the secret lies in how far they are from the Earth's core. You see, Earth is not a perfect sphere. It's chubby in the middle, and slightly squished at the top and the bottom. The chubby part in the middle is called the equator. FYI, the country Ecuador actually translates to equator in Spanish. Now you know. The mountain we're talking about, Chimborazo, is located a few degrees from the equator line. So since the squishy sphere is chubbier in the middle part, Chimborazo's peak sticks out farther into space. This means that if you hike all the way up to this mountain's peak, you'll be a smidge closer to the moon than if you hike all the way up Mount Everest. In the North Sea, off the coast of England, there's a tiny platform bobbing around, roughly the size of 2 tennis courts. You might think it's an oil platform, but this is Sealand, the world's tiniest country. The Ruff's Tower platform was built during the first half of the 20th century as a fort to protect English ships. Jump to the 1960s when a guy named Paddy Roy Bates decided to claim this old fort as his own country. naming it the Principality of Sealand. Paddy gave his country everything it deserved: a national flag, currency, a constitution, stamps, and a hoisting swing system. That's how you get into the country, by the way, hoisted all the way up to the upper part of the platform. Today, this micronation is headed by ruling monarch Michael Bates, who is a member of the country's self-proclaimed royalty. I know, right? Why wait in line for the British throne? The nation has its own fan club, who cheer for the country's national soccer club. Their team competes in international tournaments where they usually play with other tiny nations. Although Sealand only has one official resident as of right now, players from other countries join to help out their soccer team. One of the country's supporters also placed a Sealand flag on top of Mount Everest. Having your kitchen in one country and your living room in another, well, this is the daily reality for some locals in Barle. In this town, the border between Belgium and the Netherlands doesn't just run along streets, it slices right through buildings. So, to navigate this setup, a rule was made that a house's nationality is determined where its front door is located. But this solution created its own problems. There's a house where the front door is exactly on the border, giving it two addresses, one in Belgium and one in the Netherlands. The owners of this house were given a unique opportunity. They could choose which country they'd like to get their utilities from, like gas and water. And you guessed it, they picked the country where the stuff was cheaper, in this case, Belgium. Down in Senegal, Africa, there's a lake that looks like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. About 18 miles north of the capital, Dakar, you'll find Lake Retba, also known as La Rosa. This lake is famous for its bright pink water. Yes, it really is pink, and you can even take a swim if you're up for it. But be prepared, the water is super salty, one of the saltiest lakes in the world with salt levels over 40%. The pink color comes from a species of tiny algae. These algae produce red pigments that reflect sunlight, giving the lake its unique shade. If you want to see the lake at its brightest pink, visit during the dry season from November to June. The rainwater during other times of the year can wash away some of the color. Oh, by the way, there are other pink lakes around the world, like Lake Hillier in Western Australia and Lake Natron in Tanzania. So there's a hill that seems to be on fire all the time. Located in the Arctic region of Canada, the Smoking Hills are a truly unique sight on Earth. Some of the minerals found here are so rare that they've only been spotted on Mars. For at least a couple of hundred years, the ground here has been smoking continuously. At first, explorers thought this was due to an active volcano, but it turns out the smoke comes from something else. The soil in the Smoking Hills contains sulfur and coal, and when these materials mix with oxygen, they can spontaneously catch fire and keep on burning. But don't get any adventurous ideas about visiting. The environment here is extremely harsh, there's toxic smoke, and the temperatures can be dangerously high. So, I'd try Orlando. New Zealand is famous for its stunning landscapes, but it also has a hidden treasure underground. Deep in some caves in the country's North Island, you can find a mesmerizing natural wonder. To see it, you'll need to go down about 150 feet in a series of dark, twisting caves. As you go deeper, you'll enter complete darkness until you reach the cave ceilings, which are lined with tiny glowing creatures. These are New Zealand's native glowworms, which are the larvae of a special type of fungus gnat found only in this country. They shine a bright blue light to attract prey. If you get a chance to tour these caves, it feels like floating through a galaxy, with thousands of these living stars sparkling above and their glow reflecting in the water beneath your boat. It's an incredible sight, like stepping into a magical glowing world. Mexico is home to one of the most amazing caves in the world, called the Cave of Crystals. If you think you've seen big crystals before, wait until you see these. In around 1910, miners in the town of Naka, Chihuahua, like the dog, discovered a cave full of clear selenite crystals. But it wasn't until 90 years later that they found an even more incredible cave filled with enormous crystals, some as long as 39 feet and weighing up to 55 tons. Scientists believe that 26 million years ago, give or take, Hot, mineral-rich water filled this cave, allowing these huge crystals to grow. The Nika crystals are thought to be the biggest in the world, making people standing next to them look teeny in comparison. However, exploring the cave isn't easy. Inside temperatures reach 136 degrees Fahrenheit. Even with protection, people can only stay inside for 20 to 30 minutes. It's an extraordinary place, but not exactly a comfortable one for humans. Mauritius is famous for its beautiful beaches and clear blue waters. But it also has a stunning optical illusion at its southwest corner that looks like an underwater waterfall. Even though it seems like water is flowing down into the ocean, what you're actually seeing is a trick of the light and the seafloor. The island is on an ocean shelf that's only about 500 feet deep, but just beyond the edge, it drops down to 2.5 miles deep. This drop creates the illusion of a waterfall as currents push sand and particles over the edge, making it look like water is cascading down. So, while it's not a real underwater waterfall, it's definitely a cool sight to see from a boat. Now here's a place that might either give you chills or leave you in awe, depending on when you visit. Near the small town of Grafino in Poland, there's a forest of pine trees with a strange twist. They're all bent at their bases. During the day, these trees with their sharp 90-degree curves look fascinating and even a bit whimsical. You might even find a comfortable spot to sit on if you're having a picnic. But visit the crooked forest at night, and it takes on a whole different vibe. A thin layer of fog hangs around, making the forest look eerie and a bit spooky. Plus, scientists still don't know why for sure the trees are bent like this. So, would you prefer to see it in the bright light of day or the mysterious dark of night? Ooh. Does the universe ring like a crystal glass? Maybe. But it doesn't mean that it literally rings and we just don't hear it. It just vibrates. Many of you know that the universe started with the Big Bang around 13.8 billion years ago. I wasn't around then, but we can assume. The whole enchilada was born from a super concentrated, hot, and dense tiny dot that contained everything. When it couldn't bear its pressure anymore, it made a huge blast and spewed around all the time, space, matter, and antimatter like a Pokeball. After being born, the universe moved at a breakneck speed. Imagine standing in the middle of nowhere, you blink, and suddenly you're surrounded by the universe. That's what it would feel like. It started growing and growing, and eventually, its speed got slowed down a bit by gravity. Gravity started pulling all the matter together, slowly helping new things like stars and galaxies to form. Okay, makes sense so far. The Big Bang gave the universe a big push, accelerating it. Logically, everything should eventually slow down and start moving at a constant speed, or even stop, right? Well, nope. In the late 90s, astronomers discovered something weird. They looked at some supernova around us, and for some reason, these supernovas were super far away, much farther than they were supposed to be. In other words, the expansion of the universe is not only continuing after all these years, but it's even accelerating. After years of study, they discovered the concept of dark energy, a mysterious force that makes up about 68% of the universe's total energy. This energy pushes it to expand even faster over time. And now, scientists have proposed a new discovery. Perhaps the universe's movements are a bit, well, wobbly. It seems like the universe's expansion hasn't been smooth and stable over the years. Instead, it has undergone periods of speeding up and slowing down multiple times. Astronomers counted about 7 cycles of this acceleration and deceleration over the history of our universe. This can be compared to the oscillation of a crystal glass. When you strike a crystal glass, it vibrates, oscillating at its natural frequency. It goes through fluctuations in which the frequency rises and falls. Over time, it calms down and fades away. Well, something like this is happening to our universe. You can imagine its speed also fluctuating like that, rising and falling, first super rapidly and then more calmly. As if it's not just different waves traveling through it, but our entire world is like one huge ringing wave. The discovery was actually made by accident. Astronomers were working on dark matter modeling. They plotted a new graph called the Hubble diagram, which shows how big the universe got over the years, measured in supernovas. Supernovas are like some lighthouses of our world, helping us mark things on a map. That's when they found these oscillations. But we still need to check all the data to make sure that this discovery is indeed true. Dark energy and dark matter play this weird game with the universe, where one is constantly trying to pull everything together, while the other one wants everything to expand. So far, dark energy vastly outweighs dark matter, whose weight makes up only 27% of the universe. Now, both of them are invisible to us, and not just invisible to our eyes like infrared, it's that we literally can't detect them in any way. We can only assume that they exist based on how they influence gravity, changing entire galaxies, and all the large-scale structures of the universe. We basically made them up because it was the only way to explain how our world works. Dark energy is uniformly distributed across space and time, and we're still not sure what exactly it is. Some theories say that it could be a property of space itself, quantum fluctuations, or even a new type of field or particle. But all we have for now is an invisible energy that pushes the universe to move very fast. If one day we learn more about it, this will help us predict the entire fate of our world. Depending on how exactly dark energy works, the universe may continue expanding and growing indefinitely. Or maybe one day, it will experience the Big Rip, where all matter will be completely torn apart. Okay, here's to hoping we're not all around for that. Meanwhile, dark matter, also invisible and yet to be proved, works the opposite way. It's not energy that accelerates things. Instead, it's more like a glue that tries to hold everything together. It's a type of matter we can't detect because it doesn't emit, absorb, or reflect light. We don't even know what particles make up this thing. We still can't catch them. At first, we thought it might be made up of regular heavy particles, like the one that makes up our world. But after years of research, they haven't found even a single one. So now they think maybe it's actually made up of ultralight particles, millions of times lighter than anything we know, and because of that, we can't even notice them properly. So now, astronomers try to detect not the particles themselves, but waves that they could leave as they move through space. But we believe that it exists, because if it didn't, our galaxies wouldn't hold together. Dark matter helps them form, grow, and rotate. So, about 85% of our world is made of something unknown. All of this is incredibly mysterious and needs a lot of research. But that's what we know now. Maybe in the future, we'll discover something that will completely change our perception of the universe. That's what happened to Albert Einstein. In the early 20th century, most scientists, including Einstein, believed that the universe doesn't actually move. They thought it was static, neither expanding nor contracting. That's because, to us, it feels like it doesn't really move. Back then, scientists didn't have powerful computers or telescopes that could detect all the little changes in the positions of stars and supernovas. When Einstein developed his famous general theory of relativity in 1915, his equations actually suggested that the universe should either be expanding or contracting. This didn't really make sense to him. To fix this calculation flaw, he decided to introduce a new term, the cosmological constant. It was like a repulsive force that counteracted the attractive force of gravity. Essentially, it meant that while gravity tries to push everything together, some force or energy helps to balance this out by pushing everything apart. Sounds familiar? Then, in the 1920s, astronomers Edwin Hubble and Georges Lemaitre found out that the universe isn't static, it actually expands. They noticed a slight reddish tint from the distant galaxies, and this tiny hint meant that other galaxies were moving away from us. After that, Einstein scratched out the cosmological constant. Interesting how he was later ashamed of this assumption, calling it his greatest blunder. He didn't even know that he was 100 years ahead of his time, accidentally discovering dark energy. Now the cosmological constant is back again, just in a new form. Something similar happened with dark matter. Scientists have already started noticing that something doesn't add up back in the early 20th century. They saw that galaxy clusters didn't have enough visible mass to hold them together. which means there must be some unseen mass that helps to make up for it. And that's when it got its name, the dark matter. This stayed unresolved and unproven for many years. And then it was finally discovered by Vera Rubin when she was observing galaxies and their movement. She realized that outward parts of galaxies move almost as fast as their central parts. This doesn't really make sense. The outer part should be a bit slower. This became the first official proof of dark matter, which boosted its research. There are still many things left to be discovered, but maybe one day we'll understand what is this invisible part of our universe that makes it ring. Fun fact: Olympic synchronized swimmers, now renamed artistic swimmers, don't usually wear swim caps. When they compete, they put Knox gelatin in their hair. The result resembles unflavored Jell-O. Athletes mix the gelatin with water and it turns into a gooey mixture. After that, they comb and brush the substance into their hair, pull it into a bun, and put a headpiece over it. When it all dries, it becomes really hard, and swimmers' hair doesn't fall out when they swim. They often add glitter and other decorations to make their hairstyles even more exciting. The blanket octopus is called this way because of the females of the species. They're supersized and rarely seen. They have a long, fleshy cape which encloses their tentacles. Female octopuses are large, up to 6.5 feet in length. Thanks to this cape, they look even larger and much more intimidating to potential predators. But the coolest thing about these creatures is that the male blanket octopus grows to be a mere 1 inch in length, which is smaller than a walnut. This makes the blanket octopus a species with the largest gender size difference in the entire animal kingdom. Red Bull has published a video showing the so-called world's fastest camera drone following a racing car around Silverstone's Grand Prix circuit. The Dutch drone gods are a company that custom-built the manually piloted drone designed specifically for keeping up with cars moving at speeds of over 186 miles per hour. It took more than a year for Red Bull and the Dutch drone gods to create a drone that could accelerate twice as fast as a Formula One car, reaching this breakneck speed in just 4 seconds. The drone's top speed is almost 220 miles per hour. Recently, scientists have concluded that water might not be wet. You see, wetness is usually defined as a liquid's ability to maintain contact with a solid surface. It means that the water itself isn't wet, but it can make other objects wet. Okay.
Wow.
The Maldives' 1,000 rupiah banknote has captured the attention of people from all over the world and received a lot of praise for its stunning design. The note features the striped pattern of a skin of a majestic whale shark and a green sea turtle against a vibrant blue backdrop. It's already been called the prettiest currency in the world. Now, wearing a tie might be more dangerous than you think. It can reduce blood flow to the brain by 7.5%, making you dizzy and nauseous and causing headaches. Ties can also increase the pressure in your eyes if it's too tight. Plus, they're great at transporting germs. Gotta think again whether following that dress code is so necessary. A young girl from Washington broke a Guinness World Record by putting on 45 sweaters at a local library. Sophia Hayden pulled on each sweater individually all the way down to her waist before moving on to the next one. It was done to comply with Guinness World Record rules. She also had to make sure that none of those sweaters was ripped, since damaged items didn't count. As a result, she broke the record for the most sweaters worn at once. The previous record was 40 sweaters, and it was set by a French 11-year-old boy in 2022. Later, Sophia's mother admitted that it had been tricky to gather enough sweaters for that attempt. The sweaters were then donated to charity. Now, it was Louis XIV of France who is believed to have brought salt and pepper together, forming the basis for modern cooking. At that time, only rich people could afford to add pepper to their meals, and the king liked his food to be lightly seasoned with just salt and pepper. Our sun produces a sound, but sadly, we can't hear it. It's emitted in the form of pressure waves, and their wavelength is measured in hundreds of miles. It means they're far beyond the range of human hearing. Now, while we're on the topic of space, let's discuss the fact that our solar system has a wall surrounding it. Well, kind of. It's called the heliopause. and it's the region of space where solar wind isn't hot enough to push back the wind of particles coming from distant stars. That's why this region is often considered the boundary between the solar system and interstellar space. Another space fact for you: comets smell like rotten eggs. I know, ew. Other smells that might surround them are those of burning matches and even almonds. That's because of the traces of hydrogen sulfide, ammonia, sulfur dioxide, and hydrogen cyanide found in the makeup of some comets. In 2016, promotional postcards were even made, carrying the pungent scent of a comet. Now, in any career field, the average worker is productive for around 60% of their working time each day. But if we talk about office workers, this percentage drops drastically. One study determined that the average office worker is productive for a mere 2 hours and 23 minutes per day. The thing is, employees are interrupted in general every 3 minutes and 5 seconds. And it takes people a whopping 23 minutes to get refocused after an interruption. It means that employees get 3 minutes of work done for every 26 minutes they spend at their workplace. Unbelievable. No wonder that statistically, people working remotely are much more productive. Scottish soccer team Inverness Caledonian Thistle Football Club is known for using cameras with AI ball tracking to live stream their matches on YouTube. Well, once, in a 2020 match against our United to be precise, when a camera repeatedly tracked an official's bald head, mistaking it for the soccer ball. Uh-oh, what a blunder. Now, speaking of sports, football teams wearing red kits reportedly play better. Accordingly, the color of your attire affects not only how you're perceived by others, but also how you feel. A review of football matches in the past 55 years has shown that teams wearing red consistently play better in home matches than teams dressed in any other color. One more awesome story connected to sports. In order to draw some of the most wanted criminals out of hiding, the U.S. Marshals Service once came up with an offer crooks couldn't resist. They invited them to the Super Bowl. In December 1985, more than 100 people came to the Washington Convention Center after receiving a letter informing them that they had won tickets to the largest sporting event in the country. According to the invites, they had been selected randomly from a clearinghouse list of D.C. residents and were supposed to receive 2 tickets to the Redskins vs. Bengals game that day. But to get in, they had to come to a pre-game party to collect their tickets. And guess what? The plan worked like a charm. Over 100 criminals were arrested, which made Operation Flagship one of the most successful in U.S. police history. Now moving on. Your brain is eating itself non-stop. Wait, don't panic yet. It's a totally normal process known as phagocytosis. During this process, cells envelop and consume smaller cells or molecules to remove them from the system. Luckily, phagocytosis isn't harmful. It actually helps preserve your gray matter, keeping it in top shape. Boy, I could use more of that. Giraffes are 30 times more likely to get hit by lightning than people. Between 1996 and 2010, there were just 5 documented lightning strikes on giraffes that ended tragically. But if we consider the fact that the population of the species was just 140,000 at that time, it makes for around 0.003 lightning casualties per 1,000 giraffes each year. This is 30 times more than the number of tragic accidents involving lightning strikes that happen to people. Animals experience time differently from us humans. To smaller animals, the world around them moves more slowly. For instance, salamanders and lizards experience time not as fast as, let's say, dogs and cats. All because of the perception of time, which depends on how quickly the brain can process incoming information. And finally, snails do have teeth, between 1,000 and 12,000 to be precise. These teeth aren't like ours though, so there's no need to picture snails with silly toothy grins. Snails' minuscule teeth are all over their file-like tongues. So there. Well, it turns out black holes might not be as elusive as we once thought. They might be hiding within stars. In this case, the extra mass of some of these space lanterns could explain weird gravitational effects in the universe. Previously, dark matter was the cause of these phenomena. The black holes I'm talking about might be those itty-bitty ones that appeared at the dawn of time when the universe was just a baby. And they may still be lurking in the hearts of giant stars. A team of scientists say the idea might be quite plausible. Astronomers could detect such trapped black holes by the vibrations they produce on their star's surfaces. And if there are many of them out there in the cosmos, they might function as the very dark matter that holds the universe together. Almost any black hole was once a massive star that collapsed in on itself and became incredibly dense. Black holes have immense gravitational pull. Even light can't escape their clutches. People often think that black holes work like vacuums, pulling space inside. But that's not the case. Black holes can only swallow stuff that is extremely close, usually space objects venturing into their event horizon. That's a black hole's point of no return. Once you cross this border, there's no escape. In 1971, renowned physicist Stephen Hawking suggested another origin of black holes. If we took the thick soup of particles that appeared moments after the Big Bang and the birth of the universe, we'd be bound to find some spots dense enough to collapse and create black holes. Such holes, which got the name of primordial black holes, could range in size from microscopic to gigantic. If they were pervasive and numerous enough, primordial black holes could act as dark matter, knitting the cosmos together with their enormous gravity. And dark matter is believed to make up 85% of all the matter in the universe. So what's the matter? Astronomers have been searching for primordial holes by looking for flashes that would occur when they pass in front of distant bright objects, magnifying their light like a lens. But they haven't spotted even one yet. On the other hand, if a primordial black hole was tiny enough, with a mass like that of an asteroid and a diameter as minuscule as a hydrogen atom, the flashes wouldn't be bright enough to be detected by such surveys. Then the team, researching the phenomenon of primordial black holes, decided to consider the consequences of a universe where dark matter was made entirely out of tiny black holes. They concluded that one of such teensy holes could be dashing through the solar system at any given time. Some might occasionally get trapped within gas clouds, giving birth to new stars, ending up in their centers. The next step of the researchers was to build a model of a black hole existing in the very core of a star, where hydrogen atoms undergo fusion and produce light and heat. At first, they didn't see anything unusual. Even a super-dense stellar core is mostly empty space, and it wouldn't be easy for a microscopic black hole to find matter to consume there. That's why its growth would be incredibly slow. It could take longer than the lifetime of the universe for this tiny hole to eat a star. But what if a larger hole, as massive as the dwarf planet Pluto or asteroid Ceres, appeared at the center of a star? Then it would get bigger in a matter of a few 100 million years. The material would keep spiraling into the black hole, creating a disk that would heat up because of friction, emitting radiation. Once the black hole grew to the size of Earth, it would start emitting even more radiation, shining extremely brightly. It would also be churning up the star's core, and the star itself would turn into a black hole-powered rather than a fusion-powered object. Such entities were dubbed Hawking stars. To cool off, the exterior of a Hawking star would form a red giant. That's what our Sun is likely to turn into as it gets older. But a red giant star with a primordial black hole at its center would be cooler than the stars that have reached this stage through regular means. Such stars are known as red stragglers. To find out whether they indeed host a black hole, astronomers might need to tune into the frequencies at which stars vibrate. Since a Hawking star would mostly affect the interior of the star rather than its topmost layers, the star would thrum with a certain combination of frequencies. The waves created in the process could be detected in a way the star's light would pulse and throb. So, all scientists need to do now is study the already known red stragglers and figure out whether any of them show the characteristic vibrations of a black hole. Now, should we worry about the Sun? Since our star hasn't reached its red giant stage yet, we can't know whether it'll turn into a cool red straggler. What we know, though, is that our star might contain those tiny black holes that formed in the Big Bang. But now, we have no means to check whether they're indeed there. Currently, our star is around the midpoint of its existence, middle age. It creates energy non-stop by fusing hydrogen atoms within its core. Once it runs out of hydrogen in its core, it will enter its red giant phase and begin to collapse. It'll happen in about 5 billion years, don't hold your breath, and the phase itself will last for 1 billion years or so before our star depletes its fusible materials and loses its outer layers. It will leave behind a tiny white dwarf star half as massive as the Sun and around the size of our planet. In some cases, when the gravitational collapse of a star's core is complete, the star remnants turn into a black hole. But that's not the fate awaiting our Sun. You see, our star just doesn't have what it takes to become a black hole. It's not heavy enough. There are a few conditions that can affect whether a star can turn into a black hole, including its composition, rotation, and the processes that lead to its evolution. But the main requirement is still the right mass. Stars with 20 to 25 times the mass of the Sun can potentially experience the gravitational collapse needed to form black holes. In other words, the Sun is simply too small to form a black hole. But what would happen to us if it did? You might assume that if the Sun turned into a black hole, our planet would be doomed to be pulled into it. But do you remember the basics? Black holes aren't giant space vacuum cleaners, just sitting there and waiting for a new planet or star to get their hands on. Mwah. But black holes don't have enough gravitational force beyond that created by their incredible mass. And if the Sun were to turn into a black hole, which will not happen, this hole would still have the same mass as our former star, and Earth's orbit around this newly formed black hole wouldn't change. But all other things would change dramatically. The Sun, which is currently around 432,000 miles in radius, would shrink to a mere 1.9 miles in radius. But you wouldn't be concerned with the absence of the bright yellow sphere in the sky, since you have many more pressing issues on your hands. Our planet's main heat source would be gone, leaving us frozen in the dark. Without this source of energy, photosynthesis would immediately stop, disrupting entire food chains. Eventually, all life on Earth would be extinguished. But rest assured, our hard, barren rock of a planet would continue in its orbit. Oh well.
Your tummy acid can chow down on a razor blade like it's no big deal. Some penguins can totally out-height us humans. And you could potentially turn a jar of peanut butter into a rocking diamond ring to pop the question to your boo. Sounds crazy? Well, it's all true. If you're itching for more facts like these and want to learn why salty crackers are more of a tooth hazard than sugary treats, then stay tuned. Mattresses get heavier over time. As we sleep, our mattresses soak up all our skin oils, sweat, and tears. Yes, I also cry at night. This creates the perfect environment for dust mites, fungi, and bacteria to thrive. Over 5 years, your mattress might collect up to 880 pints of body fluids. Dead skin is another big weight-adding factor too. With 1.5 million skin cells shed hourly, these flakes pile up and become a feast for dust mites. An average used mattress could be home to up to 10 million of these critters. Your spilled coffee makes your mattress heavier too. Foam layers in a mattress trap the liquid and add to its weight. If you know Miss Piggy from the Muppets or Yoda from Star Wars, you'll instantly recognize their unique voices. It's hard to believe they have anything in common, right? Well, Frank Oz spilled the beans in 2021 in his interview. Starting with The Muppet Show and Sesame Street, Frank gave life to characters like Miss Piggy, Cookie Monster, Grover, and more. Then he ventured into the galaxy far, far away to voice Yoda and even came up with the alien's iconic way of speaking. Let's say you decided to move to the healthy side and started munching on carrot sticks instead of your regular, not exactly healthy snacks. Suddenly, you catch a glimpse of yourself in the mirror and realize that your skin has a subtle orange tint. Say what now? Nope, you're not dreaming. All that beta-carotene and orange fruits and veggies can give your skin a temporary glow-up. Don't worry though, just switch up your snacks and the Oompa Loompa look will fade in no time. Some people believe there's no such thing as too much garlic, and they're right. For a fun science experiment, try tasting garlic through your feet. The American Chemical Society claims it's totally possible. Cut a piece of garlic, place it in a bag, put your bare feet inside, and wait. Thanks to a compound called allicin, the garlic will travel through your skin to your mouth and nose. Kids of identical twins share a special bond, being considered both cousins and half-siblings. This unique relationship is due to their genetic similarities. They inherit similar DNA from their identical twin parents. While legally they are cousins, genetically they're more like half-siblings. In fact, they share about 25% of their DNA, double the amount shared by regular cousins. This makes them more genetically related than typical cousins, but not as close as full siblings or identical twins. A man in the US has been surviving on nothing but 20 potatoes a day for 2 months. Chris Voigt from Washington State Potato Commission wanted to show that potatoes aren't just a bunch of carbs, but are actually good for you. You may think that eating spuds alone may make you gain a few extra pounds, but Chris shed some pounds and lowered his cholesterol instead. By the way, in theory, you could even survive eating taters and butter only. Not only are potatoes cool on Earth, but scientists have also made them cool in space. They're the first plants ever grown beyond Earth. In the early 90s, there was an experiment about growing potatoes in space. The study aimed to understand how microgravity conditions affected the growth of potatoes. Potatoes were chosen for their resilience to different climates and ability to thrive in extreme conditions. We need our stomach acid to be super acidic to break down all the variety of foods we eat. It's so strong that it can even dissolve some metals. For example, razor blades dissolve in stomach acid pretty quickly. After 24 hours, they're already 63% gone. Double-edged blades can be broken within 15 hours, while single-edged blades disappear in just 2 hours. Batteries are safe, but pennies don't even get a scratch. Good thing our stomach has a protective layer of mucus and bicarbonate to keep everything in check. The reason we're taller in the morning than at night is the intervertebral discs in our spine. These discs are mostly water, and throughout the day, they get squished down from all the bending and twisting we do. But when we sleep, our spines get a chance to relax, and the discs soak up more fluid, making us a bit taller in the morning. Scientists have found that there are some pretty big gaps between adult brains and teenage brains. One key player in this brain game is the prefrontal cortex. This part of the brain handles important stuff like decision-making and impulse control, but it's not all grown up until you hit your 20s. Adults have their prefrontal cortex in full swing, helping them make smart choices and think things through. Teens, on the other hand, might be more likely to let their emotions guide their decisions. If a cow ever smiles at you, you're gonna be in for a shock. They don't even have upper front teeth. Instead, they have a special dental pad that helps them munch on grass like a pro. When it comes to chewing, cows have it down to a science. They have sharp incisors at the bottom of their mouth for cutting grass and molars at the back for grinding it all up. It all works smoothly, like a quality food processor. Researchers have discovered a penguin species that lived 37 million years ago and would have been as tall as most humans. This giant penguin, also known as the Colossus penguin, stood at a whopping 7 feet tall from toe to beak tip and weighed as much as 250 pounds. To put that in perspective, today's biggest penguin, the emperor penguin, is only 3.6 feet tall and weighs between 50 and 100 pounds. The researchers have also found the longest recorded fused ankle foot bone and parts of a wing bone from this ancient species. With their larger build, these giant penguins were able to dive underwater for longer periods of time, up to 40 minutes, to hunt for fish. Every year, people around the world take about 1.81 trillion photos. That's around 57,000 photos snapped every second, or a whopping 5 billion pics snapped daily. These days, we take more photos every 2 minutes than were taken in the entire 19th century. Cheese! In Singapore, researchers gave cyborg cockroaches a spin in the desert to try them out for search and rescue missions down the road. Turns out, a team of 20 roaches decked out with computer backpacks can actually work together as a swarm. The scientists were able to steer the roaches by sending commands through the backpacks, thanks to a cool new algorithm they came up with. These high-tech bugs could be a real game-changer in disaster situations when it comes to sniffing out survivors. What do peanut butter and an engagement ring have in common? Both of them contain diamonds. Scientists have learned how to turn peanut butter into diamonds. They extracted oxygen from CO2, got carbon, and then put it under intense pressure, forming diamonds in the end. Double-stuffed Oreo cookies aren't double-stuffed in fact. A math teacher, Dan Anderson, weighed 10 regular Oreos, 10 double-stuffed Oreos, 10 mega-stuffed Oreos, and 5 wafers. Turns out, double-stuffed Oreos are only 1.86 stuffed Oreos. Next time you ditch your favorite candies because of your fear of cavities, think twice about what you replace those candies with. Crackers are even more harmful for your teeth than sugar. It's not sugar, but acid that decays the teeth enamel. Sticky crackers produce that acid. It's a good environment for bacteria. They're gonna feast in between your teeth. Water is something that just can't go off. How come there are these expiration dates on water bottles then? The expiration date on mineral water doesn't refer to the water. It's about the bottle that can actually get expired. The thing is, over time, it starts leaking some chemicals that aren't quite safe.
Ruh-roh, there might be another universe, like a dark mirror image of ours, where time flows in reverse. This flipped-over world might also be the source of dark matter, the invisible substance that's all over our universe. There might also be many more universes out there, in which an exact copy of you woke up this morning, but it chose a white t-shirt instead of a red one, sending it on a completely different life path. But let's start with this elusive dark matter. It makes up most of the universe's mass, yet we're not sure what exactly it does or where it comes from. That's because it doesn't act like regular matter. We can't see it or feel it. We just know it's there because of how it seems to bend gravity. Even though regular matter and dark matter are very different, they seem to exist in a balance. Some scientists think this must be connected somehow. A new theory suggests that for every way regular matter moves, there's a mirror version of it in the world of dark matter, like a bridge connecting the two worlds. There's also a strange coincidence in regular matter where a neutron and a proton have almost the same weight. This allows them to stick together and make atoms stable, making everything that we can see with our eyes exist. If protons were a bit heavier, there would be no balance and atoms wouldn't form. In the dark mirror universe, maybe things happen differently. Maybe in there, the equivalent of a proton doesn't bind to other particles, leaving behind lonely neutrons, which could be the source of dark matter. This theory also suggests that dark matter might have its own chemistry, like dark atoms and a dark periodic table. For the longest time, scientists believed there was just one type of dark matter. Although these particles are similar in some ways, like being almost invisible, they may vary in their sizes, speeds, and how they affect regular matter. If this idea is right, it means there could have been interactions between our universe and the dark mirror universe in the past. Studying how elements formed in the early universe might give us clues about this. The idea of a flipped world has sparked curiosity and even some confusion in the scientific community in recent years. Astronomers use a theory called the Lambda CDM model to explain the composition and behavior of our universe. According to it, most of the universe is made of two things: dark energy and dark matter. Dark energy is like the pushing force that makes the universe expand faster. Dark matter is this invisible thread that pulls things together with its gravity, acting like a universal glue. Regular objects, like stars, planets, and comets, only make up a small part of the mix. The model also tells us about the Big Bang, and how everything started from a hot, crowded beginning, and how the universe has been growing and changing ever since. While this model seems to be correct in many ways, it doesn't explain all cosmic phenomena. If you were to draw this model on a piece of paper, it would look like a series of flat pancakes stacked on top of one another. Each one of the pancakes represents a rendition of the universe at a certain point in time. Yesterday's universe would stand below that of today, but it would be a slightly smaller pancake. By the end, you'll see that the universe's history looks like this giant upside-down cone, with its minuscule tip being the Big Bang. Beyond this point, we can't see any further away in time with the tools we have, so we don't know what's beyond. More so, we're still not even sure what happened immediately after the Big Bang. But if we simply apply the math, the universe might go beyond this historical tipping point, which could mean it could go in reverse, creating a similar mirrored cone where time would flow backwards, in our perspective at least. This alternative idea not only challenges our understanding of cosmic origins, but also raises questions about fundamental principles in physics. All the excitement around a mirrored universe also came from ANITA, a scientific instrument stationed in Antarctica, and its discoveries. This device saw some weird high-energy particles seemingly bursting from beneath the Antarctic ice. The problem with these particles is that they didn't behave as the laws of physics dictate. Scientists think they have a type of cosmic rays. They travel from space through the Earth and back out again. But the particles we already know about shouldn't behave like that. That's because higher energy particles usually collide with something inside the Earth and don't come out the other side like these do. They seem to be doing things both forward and backward. For now, there's no concrete proof of a mirrored universe. These particles could simply be ones we haven't discovered before, and scientists need to study them closely to come up with a definitive answer as to why they're behaving like this. Kind of like 4-year-olds. But what if there isn't just one other universe, but many more? This multiverse concept comes from ideas like the inflation theory, which says that our world had this rapid expansion in its early stages. While inflation stopped in our neighborhood billions of years ago, it's likely that it continues in other regions of the multiverse, creating different universes with their own laws of physics and unique characteristics. Our universe is the only one that we know of that can support life. We have stable stars that can provide heat and warmth, for example, which is crucial for creatures to start moving around. We also have an abundance of elements like carbon and hydrogen, which we also need to exist. The multiverse hypothesis gives an explanation for why our universe exhibits such life-friendly conditions. It may explain that there are countless other universes out there, with varying conditions, making the existence of life in at least one of them less likely. One fascinating implication of the multiverse theory is the idea of doppelgangers, these exact copies of individuals existing in parallel universes. This notion suggests that within the vast expanse of the multiverse, there could be infinite scenarios where identical versions of ourselves are experiencing similar events at the same time. Before we begin our travels to different universes altogether, we might need to understand our own. There's this galaxy, for instance, far from us, that might have no dark matter at all. It's about 250 million light-years away and looks normal at first glance. But if we look closer, we can't seem to find any dark matter. If it turns out that there are more galaxies like this one, it could change our ideas about how galaxies are made. Dark matter is usually thought to be necessary for this process, acting like the glue that holds the whole thing together. It is true, however, that this particular galaxy is more faint and has fewer stars than usual. When it was first discovered in 2019, scientists thought it might not have dark matter because of how fast it was spinning. The speed at which a galaxy spins tells us how much stuff there is in it. By comparing this speed with what we can see, astronomers can figure out how much extra stuff, like dark matter, must be there. And in this unique galaxy, the math says there isn't any. Among all these theories, there's also one that says dark matter might not be real at all. This new study proposes that maybe we've been looking for something that doesn't even exist. They think that our understanding of gravity might not be good enough to explain why some galaxies behave oddly. So instead of dark matter causing these weird behaviors, they say it might just be that we don't fully understand how regular matter works. They base these findings on a theory called modified Newtonian dynamics. It suggests that gravity behaves differently at very large distances or very low speeds. So, Mars has several faces. No, really. Back in 1976, when the Viking 1 orbiter was checking out the red planet, it spotted something interesting. A big structure that looked like a human face. It was in the region called Cydonia. It soon became very popular. A bit later, we also discovered the so-called crown face in Libya Montes. Mars in general has a lot of strange structures on it. In 2022, we spotted a door-like structure there. NASA's Curiosity rover snapped some pictures of a rocky mound called East Cliffs on Mount Sharp. This mound has natural cracks in it, and one of them is about the size of a dog door, like something from an ancient Egyptian tomb. A lot of people hyped that story up. The image was shared widely on social media, making the crack look bigger than it really is. Some people think that it's hinting at extraterrestrial life. But after looking closely, NASA found out that it was just a narrow crack in the rocky terrain. These cracks and gaps are pretty normal in rocky areas, both on Earth and Mars. The crack formed naturally over time, maybe from wind erosion or Mars quakes. Mars is a gold mine of mysterious structures. Recently, we found some strange spiral shapes there. These are giant coils made of lava, and they look like big springs or loops. For years, we weren't sure whether Martian valleys were formed by lava or ice. These lava coils are shedding light on that mystery. Now, thanks to higher-resolution images from NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, researchers have spotted 269 lava spirals that can't be explained by ice-related activities. What's fascinating is these lava coils are like the ones we see on Earth, like those formed by Hawaiian lava flows. These spirals are so well preserved that they were easily overlooked before. They range from 16 to almost 100 feet wide and are subtle, blending into the dusty Martian landscape. These coils can teach us a lot about Mars's composition, especially its crust and mantle. We still don't know much about those. But Mars isn't the only planet with strange structures on it. For example, Saturn, the gas giant of our solar system, has a fascinating feature at its north pole, a huge hexagon. This is a hexagon-shaped cloud pattern. It's about 9,000 miles long, making it larger than the diameter of Earth. It's thought to be a jet stream made of gases moving very fast, at about 200 miles per hour. This hexagon was first spotted by the Voyager mission in the 80s, and later seen up close by the Cassini mission in 2006. The Cassini mission noticed a change in its color from blue to golden over time. There are different ideas about why Saturn has this thing. One theory suggests it forms because of the way winds move at different speeds near Saturn's poles. Similar shapes were created in lab experiments when liquids were rotated at different speeds. Another idea suggests that a slow spinning stream of air, along with Saturn's special weather patterns, might be responsible. In 2020, we found that when storms are surrounded by winds swirling in the opposite direction, they can create a steady hexagon shape. So far, this is the most likely explanation. Saturn also got lucky with the bizarre moons. One of them is called Lapidus. This moon has a weird feature, a huge ridge that wraps around its middle like a giant belt. This basically makes it look like a giant walnut. Where's my nutcracker? This ridge is incredibly tall by our standards, around 8 up to 12 miles high and stretching 124 miles wide. It covers more than 3/4 of the moon's surface and is considered the third largest mountain range in the entire solar system. Now, we don't have a clue about how this enormous ridge formed. It's unlike anything seen on other planets or moons. There's one idea, though. The ridge might be the remnants of a dead moon. Let's say billions of years ago, a colossal impact shattered chunks of material off Lapidus. These pieces circled around the moon, forming a mini-moon or sub-satellite. And over time, the gravitational pull of Lapidus tore this mini-moon apart, creating a ring of debris around it. As the debris from this ring fell back onto Lapidus, it built up the massive ridge we see today. They think this process happened quickly, maybe over centuries. Saturn's gravity didn't interfere because, luckily, Lapidus was quite far away from it. If Lapidus was closer to Saturn, its moon might have been pulled away. But we do need more simulations to see if this theory is true. Titan, another one of Saturn's moons, also has some weird stuff going on in its methane seas. Scientists have spotted these strange bright spots called magic islands that seem to pop up and disappear over time. We have no idea what they are. Titan's atmosphere is packed with complex organic molecules that clump together and fall to its surface like snow. These magic islands might be snow clumps that soak up methane and sink very slowly. But there's a problem. In water, molecules stick together, which is why stuff can float on top of it. But methane is different. It likes to grab onto other molecules, so it makes any solid thing sink immediately. Yet, these magic islands don't sink. There's a theory that these islands might be like sponges made of ice with lots of holes. When pieces of this holy ice come loose from the edge of the lake, they can float on Titan's seas for a bit before going down under. There are also other ideas, like bubbles of nitrogen gas or waves caused by wind. We need more research to know for sure. Moons like to be weird. Just look at our own one. In 1971, we found a patch with missing soil on our moon, and it looks like a blue lake. They call this mysterious spot Ina. We first spotted it during the Apollo 15 mission in 1971. Later, the Apollo 17 mission took clearer pictures of it. This spot, shaped like a bluish D letter, is one of the weirdest things on the moon. The color comes from special rocks rich in titanium called basalts. These rocks cover Ina's floor and make it look blue. There are also bluish areas near the edges of the mounds inside Ina. Ina is unique and probably has a long history. It might have had volcanic activity, with mounds that are about 3.5 billion years old. It's similar to the surface age of the volcanic field that surrounds Ina. Now, our moon has its own face, just like those on Mars. There's an area near the moon's south pole that looks like a face, but it's just a bunch of craters and shadows that happen to make an image resembling a face when seen from far away. These craters have been there for billions of years and cover about 16% of the moon's surface. Some of these craters might even have water and ice inside of them. You might be wondering why there are so many faces in our solar system. Well, that's because our brains are wired to recognize faces, even when there aren't any. It's a phenomenon called pareidolia. Our brains try to make sense of shapes, so when we see something that looks a bit like a human, our brain turns it into one because it's familiar. Like when you see a shadow figure on a chair with clothes, or even on Mercury. Some people see shapes like Mickey Mouse. So don't worry, it's not extraterrestrial life. It's our brains that play tricks on us, making us see familiar shapes like faces even where they don't really exist. An ancient computer stood dormant underwater for thousands of years. When it was first discovered in the early 1900s, people confused it with a boring lump of metal and wood. But once it was properly studied, the Antikythera mechanism shook up what we knew of the ancient Greeks and their knowledge of astronomy. Is it really a computer? Depends on what you consider one to be. We know that the first mechanical device of this kind was designed in 1822 and could only help with simple calculation. The Antikythera mechanism also doesn't have a keyboard or screen. It's made out of 3 bronze pieces featuring intricate designs, gears that resemble those of a clock, and a ring with degrees, similar to a protractor. No other similar devices can be traced so far back in time. X-rays needed to be invented before scientists could figure out this device. They soon learned that the Antikythera mechanism was probably used to track stars and planets. Here's how it worked. Inside its wooden case were lots of tiny gears. They weren't for telling time, but rather for predicting astronomical events. It gave the user unique knowledge of where every planet, the Sun, and the Moon would be at any given time. By turning a button, it was set in motion, and it would show how the celestial bodies moved. One of its biggest mysteries is those planetary pointers. It's common knowledge these days that planets owe their specific movements because they're orbiting the Sun for the most part. Some believe the Greeks back then weren't that advanced with their astronomy to know this. A few ancient Greek scholars proposed the idea of the Sun being at the center of the known universe, but it wasn't a widely accepted theory. The reason why is simple. If the Earth was spinning on its axis and revolving around the Sun, why can't we feel it move? Some parts of the Antikythera mechanism may still be at the bottom of the sea, while others may be lost forever. So we may never know the truth about its purpose. The official story about the first battery? That it was invented somewhere around the 1800s. It was made of interlaying copper and zinc discs that had a piece of cloth between them, dipped in a special chemical concoction that conducts electricity. Some archaeologists claim they've uncovered a battery 10 times older, called the Battery of Baghdad. So it could be that the technology for inventing batteries was hiding under our noses. At first glance, the ancient Battery of Baghdad looks like a random clay pot. What makes it special is its composition, a set of weirdly nested artifacts. Inside this pot was a copper cylinder, enveloping an iron rod. The rod would have poked through the jar's lid. The artist and archaeologist who found this unusual device never left a detailed account of where, when, or how he stumbled upon it. But the widely accepted theory is that the object was unearthed in what's now known as Baghdad in Iraq. Another thing most specialists can agree on is that it can be traced back to the ancient city of Ctesiphon. Its exact age, though, remains a mystery. Some say it's over 2,000 years old. Others say it's a mere 1,400 years old. Even at the later end of the spectrum, it still significantly predates the first electric battery that's just a couple of centuries old. Since there's no official record accompanying the artifact, there's a chance we'll never know what its purpose was. So where did this idea of it being a battery come from? It all has to do with those two metals found inside with differing electropotentials, which is a key component of batteries. There's also evidence suggesting that the jar once held an ionic solution, acting as an electrolyte, the substance needed in batteries to carry the electric current. Tests on the jar's corrosion hint that it may have contained substances similar to vinegar. Even if we agree that it's an ancient battery, this artifact could have only generated a mere volt or so. But the ancient humans didn't have TVs or dishwashers, so what did they need a battery for? A lot of theories came up. Throughout history, civilizations have explored the applications of electricity in medicine. For instance, the ancient Greeks found relief from pain by placing electric fish on their feet. Ow! Another intriguing idea says such batteries were placed inside statues to create a buzzing effect, adding a mystical dimension to spiritual practices. There was even an idea that suggested the battery was used in gilding, the process of coating one metal with another. This method was used by jewelers back in the day. If it wasn't used for providing electricity, the Baghdad battery was probably a container for special scrolls. Then the iron rod would have been the core for the scroll, wrapped around it before being placed inside the copper tube. In other parts of the world, it's a little coin that seems to have time-traveled. In 1957, an interesting piece of metal was discovered in Maine by an amateur archaeologist. At first, he believed it was just a basic English coin from the 1100s. Years went by before the coin was properly studied until 1978, when a local magazine decided to feature the coin in an article titled, "Were the English the first to discover America?" A coin expert from London took one look and knew something was off. The coin didn't look English at all, but rather like a Norse penny, dating back to the late 11th century. How did a Viking coin end up in Maine? A Norwegian coin expert then paid a visit to the main state museum to inspect the artifact up close and confirmed its authenticity. How it got there remains a mystery. Some speculate that it traveled through trade routes, exchanging hands until it wound up in Maine. Others think it might have been part of a larger Viking settlement that we've yet to uncover. But then there are the skeptics who think there's something fishy. That initial amateur that discovered the coin had some connections that could have helped him get his hands on a Norse penny. Plus, around the same time, there was a whole bunch of Viking-related hoaxes floating around. The idea of Vikings cruising around America isn't entirely new, though. Icelandic sagas have hinted at it for centuries. But it wasn't until the discovery of an archaeological site in Newfoundland that people started taking it seriously. It still doesn't confirm if the penny was legit or not. The city of Rockwall in Texas is famous for its live music and family-friendly vibe. But it got its name from a curious rock formation still shrouded in mystery. Beneath the city's surface lies a series of hard mineral stones stacked in a way that resembles a massive wall of rocks. For more than a century and a half, people have pondered the origins of this mysterious structure. Could it be the handiwork of ancient humans, left behind as a testament to their ingenuity? Or is it simply a natural phenomenon, shaped by the forces of geology over millions of years? The formation has been spotted in over 10 different locations around the city, stretching both above and below ground. In their quest for answers, scientists have conducted various tests on the rocks that make up the wall. One geologist suggested back in 1901 that the formation was just a naturally occurring sandstone dike. Subsequent studies have supported this idea, with experts from the University of Texas at Dallas confirming that the rocks formed over millions of years through the deposition and hardening of sediment. Despite the scientific consensus, there are still those who believe there's more to the Rockwall formation. Tales of steps, archways, and even corridors have circulated for decades, supported by old newspaper reports and local folklore. Some claim to have seen strange markings on the rocks, while others speak of mysterious metal objects embedded in them. The scientific explanation could be that the supposed steps and archways are likely just illusions created by the natural fracturing of the rock. As for the metal objects, it's believed they are simply concentrations of iron-bearing minerals. It doesn't explicitly show ancient humans put them there. Whether the Rockwall formation was crafted by ancient hands or shaped by natural forces, it remains a cherished part of Rockwall's identity. So you're on a desert safari, but things don't go as planned. Now you've run out of water in one of the hottest and driest places on the planet. You might think you can get some water from a cactus, but sorry, that's just a myth. In fact, most cactuses have protective chemicals inside them that can make you sick if you try to eat them. There are only a couple of exceptions. The prickly pear and one type of barrel cactus called the fishhook barrel cactus have milder chemicals and could give you some water if you really needed it. Now, if you believe you can escape an alligator if you run in a zigzag, well, I need to disappoint you. This isn't true either. Just run as fast as you can. Alligators rarely chase humans on land. They prefer to ambush their prey in the water, where they are faster and more agile. After all, they can swim at 10 miles per hour. So the chance of an alligator chasing a human on land is very low. This zigzag running advice is more of a joke than a serious survival strategy. Don't believe the myth claiming you can survive a wild animal attack if you pretend to not be alive. Okay, in the animal kingdom, playing dead is a common defense tactic. Some animals even excrete certain odors to enhance the illusion and deter predators. Yet, for humans, that's different. Investigation into 14 different types of animals in North America revealed that, in most situations, it's crucial to stay alert and knowledgeable to be able to take the right actions in time. The next popular, but false, idea is that polar bears hide their noses with their paws while hunting. People think they do it because their black noses are easy to see against the ice, while their fur blends in. However, experts have spent years using telescopes to watch polar bears hunting seals in the Arctic. They've observed them for a long time, even up to 24 hours, and have never seen them cover their noses like that. Unless they have to sneeze. Just joking. Another belief is that running downhill will save you from a bear. This is based on the idea that their shorter front legs struggle to run downhill. In reality, bears are incredibly fast runners, capable of reaching speeds of over 37 miles per hour, and they can sprint downhill just as easily as uphill. So you'll need another strategy. The myth that vehicle headrests are designed to be detachable and sharp to break windows is false. The primary function of a headrest is to prevent neck damage in a crash. Research and documents about the headrest design don't mention any feature for breaking windows. Plus, not all vehicles have removable headrests, and those that are detachable are not necessarily sharp. Touching a baby bird will make its parents abandon it. Actually, birds have a limited sense of smell, so they're unlikely to detect human scent on their babies. This misconception often leads people to leave fledgling birds alone, thinking they're helping. But in reality, these young birds might need assistance. But also, it's common for young birds to leave the nest before they can fly well, and their parents usually to continue to feed them on the ground. If you find a baby bird that has fallen out of its nest, it's best to leave it alone, as the parents are likely nearby and will continue to care for it. The widespread belief that humans use only 10% of their brains is a myth too. Advanced neuroimaging tools like PET scans show that the entire brain is active, even during sleep. These scans reveal continuous activity across the brain, involved in functions such as regulating, interpreting, and acting. This debunks the idea that large parts of the brain remain inactive. The myth that shaving body hair makes it grow back thicker and darker is false. When you shave facial or body hair, it doesn't change its thickness, color, or rate of growth. Shaving just leaves hairs with blunt tips. These newly cut, blunt tips might feel coarser or stubbier as the hair grows out. During this phase, the hair may seem more noticeable and could appear darker or thicker, but this is just a temporary effect, not an actual change in the properties of your body hair. The tall tale that daddy longlegs are the world's most venomous spiders is just a bit of an overstatement. These critters aren't even true spiders. They have been wrongly accused of packing a dangerous venomous punch. In fact, they don't have venom glands at all, and their tiny fangs can't even break human skin. It seems they got their fearsome reputation more from their spindly appearance and as a case of mistaken identity. The belief that everyone in medieval times kicked the bucket in their 30s is way off. Life expectancy is just an average. Back then, a lot of people didn't make it past childhood due to things like rampant infant mortality and risky childbirth. But if you went through those early life hurdles and hit your 20s, you had a decent shot at seeing your 50s or even 70s. Most of our medieval life expectancy data comes from noble dudes, who often ended up as battlefield statistics, skewing the numbers. Soap is often seen as the arch nemesis of cast iron cookware, but let's bust that myth with a little kitchen science. The fear is that soap will take away the precious seasoning that makes cast iron pans non-stick and awesome. Modern soaps are much gentler than those old lye-heavy ones that started this whole non-soap on cast iron rule. Today's soaps won't harm your pan seasoning, especially if it's well established. The old "wait an hour after eating before you swim" rule is more of a misconception than a medical must. The idea was that swimming right after a big meal could lead to cramps, but in reality, it's not a hard rule. Sure, your body diverts blood to your stomach for better digestion, which could, theoretically, leave less for your muscles, increasing the risk of cramps. But for most people, a little light post-snack swimming isn't a recipe for disaster. Bundling up because you think cold weather causes colds? Well, it's not exactly the air that's to blame. It's true that we often start sniffling when the temperature drops, but it's not the cold itself doing the deed. The real culprits are the viruses that cause colds, which just happen to love those lower temperatures. So while chilly weather provides a cozy playground for these germs, catching a cold still requires catching the virus. In other words, it's not the frosty weather, but the frosty weather-loving viruses that you need to watch out for. Oh look, it's that time again when a Facebook privacy hoax makes the rounds, convincing people that a simple copy-paste can magically protect their data. Yes, the classic "I do not give Facebook permission" spiel is back, charming users into thinking this status update is a legally binding shield against privacy breaches. Spoiler alert, it's not. These posts claim that declaring sovereignty over your personal content on your timeline will stop Facebook from using your photos, information, and messages. Facebook's actual policies and user agreements, which everyone agreed to by signing up, still hold the real power. Shaving a double-coated dog is okay? No, it's a big no-no, with some lasting downsides. These dogs have a soft undercoat and a tougher top coat. Shaving messes up their growth balance, leading to a mismatched and not-so-pretty coat. Plus, there's only a 50-50 chance the double coat will return to its former glory, if at all. Contrary to popular belief, shaving doesn't cool them down. It actually wrecks the coat's natural air circulation system. Other risks include matting, sunburn, and impaired temperature regulation. The coat might never look or feel the same again. Go for a de-shedding treatment. It removes excess undercoat, helps your dog stay cool, and keeps the coat in top shape, all without the drama of a full shave. It's time to look at common misconceptions and myths associated with treating frostbite. Rubbing frostbitten skin cannot help. It can actually worsen the condition and lead to tissue damage. The idea that hot water should be used for rewarming the affected areas is wrong too. Use lukewarm water instead to avoid burns.
Bet you've never heard of corrugation. It's a system that may lie hidden in your pantry right now. Ever notice those bumps on food cans? That's exactly what they're called. And they're not just for aesthetics. First off, they make the can extra strong. That's because they can help it from cracking during the manufacturing process. Plus, these corrugations come in handy during delivery, acting like a shield to make sure there's no spillage. They're also useful in the long run because they help keep the cans in their original shape. Even when things get too hot or too cold, these corrugations let them breathe a bit. They expand and contract without breaking the metal. You may not notice any cracks on regular cans, but even the tiniest of openings can leave a way for nasty bacteria to get in contact with the food. Not to mention, they create this little air gap, so when you pop the can open, everything slides out smoothly, without you having to put in that much effort. You know what also doesn't require much effort? Hitting that subscribe button and liking this video. You know there's a plant out there that's so eager to reach the sun, you can hear it grow? Rhubarb, just before it's picked from the fields, soaks up all the sun rays it can get to make glucose. After this sunbathing session, it gets transported to dark sheds. Inside, it keeps on growing and uses the stored glucose as fuel. Nothing out of the ordinary so far, but in that dark, cozy, and warm place, rhubarb starts acting weird. That environment pushes the plant to stretch itself out in hopes it will find sun rays again. It happens so fast that you can actually hear the buds and stalks making noise as they pop open. To make sure this process goes smoothly, there's no light allowed. If light hits the rhubarb at this point, it will start photosynthesizing again and go bitter. Speaking of everyday groceries, you might have noticed that veggie bags come with some green stripes. Know that it's a sneaky optical trick. Those stripes fool our eyes into believing the veggies look way greener than they are. And it's not just veggies that get this special packaging. Oranges are often sold in red mesh bags for the same reason. Lemons? They go for yellow or green bags for that same pop of color. If your cooking skills aren't that good and you're just afraid you're going to mess up dinner yet again, stick to mushrooms. That's because they're almost impossible to overcook. Unlike other vegetables that turn into mush when overcooked, mushrooms are way more resistant. They've got this interesting substance called chitin, a molecular structure that works like an armor. So you can cook them forever. They won't burn. Donuts don't have holes in them because it's easier for you to pick them up. If you've ever tried to make them at home, you might have noticed that when you fry the dough, the outside gets done quickly, thanks to the hot oil. If you want the inside to look just as good, you have to keep it in the oil way longer, but then the outside would get too brown. Thanks to that middle hole, the heat gets to both sides equally, cooking up a flawless donut. Here's how that small piece of paper makes it into your fortune cookie. First, they bake these cookies flat, like pancakes. Then, while they're still warm and bendy, they sneak in those tiny messages. As the cookies cool down, they toughen up and keep their shape, trapping the fortune inside like a tasty time capsule. One legend has it that these Asian treats were initially intended to help people send all sorts of secret messages without causing any suspicion. Here's a little tip for whenever you're buying lunch at a fast food place. Skip the word extra when you're ordering. The moment you speak that term, you're tempting the employees to charge more. Instead, go for something like, "A little more, please," when you're getting a special burrito bowl. According to a UK study, cheese is the most stolen of foods worldwide. It's estimated that around 4% of all cheese just vanishes from stores. And no, it's not mice doing the stealing, it's people. Why? Because cheese is becoming more and more valuable. The price of cheese is constantly going up, and sneaky thieves are trying to make easy money by simply taking it from the racks. It's not just cheese, though. Other interesting items on the thieving list include fresh meat, chocolate, and seafood. Ferrero, the company behind those luscious jars of Nutella, needs about 25% of the world's hazelnuts every year. So if you think about it, 1 in 4 hazelnuts ends up in a chocolatey jar. The manufacturers get the nuts from Turkey, Italy, and Chile, making sure they get them delivered from both the northern and southern hemispheres to keep things fresh. Nutella's impact on the economy is even bigger than you'd imagine. Because of this demand, the price of hazelnuts went through the roof. In 2014, a frost hit Turkey's hazelnuts, supply got halved, and prices were even higher. Now, even places like New Jersey are trying to grow those Nutella-worthy nuts. When you imagine someone trying to sneak something into space, your first thought wouldn't be a sandwich. But back in 1965, during a Gemini mission, astronaut John Young brought a corned beef sandwich on board, going against NASA rules. He hid it in his spacesuit pocket before blastoff. About 2 hours into the 5-hour trip, he went to the mission commander and offered him this unlawful treat. The commander, being a good sport, took it, and they shared a quick, savory moment. He even put the unfinished sandwich in his own spacesuit pocket to avoid crumbs making a mess of the spacecraft. Meanwhile, the official NASA-approved food was waiting patiently in a box nearby. Surely, radishes aren't your first pick when it comes to salad ingredients, but they have quite an interesting history too. These mustard, broccoli, cabbage, and cauliflower cousins have been grown and eaten for longer than you'd imagine, even before the Romans were famous in ancient Egyptian times. In fact, radishes were used as currency for the people who built the pyramids, alongside onions and garlic. You'd think the English are champions when it comes to drinking tea, but you'd be wrong. Turkey is in fact the tea capital of the world. Every Turk drinks an average of 1,300 cups of tea each year. On a regular day, they're sipping on 3 to 5 cups, but when winter hits, they can reach 10 cups a day. Locals claim tea is like a social custom for them. It's more than just a hot beverage. It's an excuse to sit down, enjoy the atmosphere, and connect with loved ones. When it comes to types, black tea is preferred. There might be a magical drink hidden in your fridge. It's tonic water, and it might be able to glow in the dark. If you're curious, test it out with some ultraviolet light. The secret behind this glow is pretty simple. Tonic water has quinine, a chemical that lights up under certain conditions. Quinine was used back in the day to treat certain health problems. The stuff was so bitter that some people started mixing it with sugar and soda water. In simple terms, things glow because they absorb light energy, gets all excited, and then releases it as visible light. Quinine in tonic water absorbs and releases energy, making your drink look like it's from a fairy tale. There's an interesting connection between what we hear and what we taste. Scientists investigated and found that people worldwide link certain sounds with specific flavors, and they call it cross-modal correspondence. High-pitched sounds match up with sweet and sour tastes, while the lower, jarring sounds go hand in hand with bitterness. If it's staccato, think crunchy, and if it's smooth and flowing, think creamy. Some even found music that can enhance the taste of chocolate. In this study, when people listened to a high-pitched, sweet soundtrack while eating chocolate, they thought it was sweeter than when they'd heard a lower, more dissonant soundtrack. Space, the final frontier. It's a vast and mysterious expanse that has fascinated us for centuries. But as much as we've learned about it, there are still plenty of things that we've been lied to about when it comes to space. Let's take a look at some of the biggest lies we've been told about this topic. First off, we have the idea that space is just this pristine, untouched wilderness. But that's not exactly true. We've been littering space with our debris for decades. Everything from old satellites to rocket parts. In fact, there are over 20,000 pieces of debris orbiting Earth right now, and they're causing all sorts of problems for future space missions. So if you're planning on visiting space anytime soon, watch where you go. You never know what kind of garbage might be floating around. Did you know that the sun is not actually yellow? It's green. Well, kind of. You see, scientists measure the temperature of a star by the color spectrum it emits. Cooler stars appear red, while the hottest of stars look blue. Our sun emits most of its energy at a wavelength that's close to green. But because it emits other wavelengths too, all these colors mix together, and your eyes see this vibrant mixture as white. From Earth, however, the sun looks yellow because our atmosphere is really good at scattering blue light. If our star was actually yellow, Earth would become a frozen rock, and we'd all be polar bears. Plus, the sun isn't on fire for real. It's a big ball of gas, mostly made of hydrogen and helium, and it works more like a gigantic nuclear reactor, constantly fusing hydrogen atoms to create helium inside its core. This process releases enormous amounts of energy. That's why the sun is so hot. Oh, and speaking of setting things on fire, explosions in space aren't real. Sorry, Star Wars fans, a spaceship can't go down in a violent blast because there is no air out there in space. No air means no oxygen, and no oxygen means no fire. Now, you might also think that there are too many stars in the night sky for you to count, but in fact, you can do that. According to the Yale Bright Star Catalog, there are 9,110 stars that you can see from Earth with the unaided eye. So, technically, you can count them, but I wouldn't be surprised if you lost count. And if you're worried about flying through an asteroid belt, don't be. Although it does have trillions of space rocks that range in size from space dust to a quarter of the size of the Moon, they're very spread out. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter is 140 million miles across, which is 1.5 times the distance between Earth and the Sun. This spreads space rocks thousands of miles apart, making it almost impossible for a spacecraft to collide with one. You'll instantly freeze in space without a suit. Nope, you won't turn into a popsicle right away. It's going to take a bit longer than that because heat and cold don't really move very quickly in the vacuum of space. But unfortunately for you, there's a bigger problem at hand. You won't be able to breathe. After just 15 seconds, your brain won't be getting enough oxygen from your blood and you'll pass out. And then after just 2 minutes, it's curtains for the rest of your organs. So, in short, if you find yourself playing astronaut without a spacesuit, it's game over pretty quickly. Did you know that space doesn't have any temperature at all? That's because the temperature is defined by the speed at which particles move and the amount of energy they have. In the true vacuum of space, there are no particles to move around, making it temperatureless. Of course, some parts of space are really hot, like areas around stars. But the further away you get from stars, the more spread out particles are, making those areas of space pretty chilly. Number 9 is our planet's shape. No, it's not flat, but it's not a perfect sphere either. Yeah, it bulges at the equator because of our planet's wild spin. It's like Earth is doing its own little dance. And because of this bulging, launching spaceships from the equator is much easier than from the poles. Now, when it comes to sound in space, it's a bit of a tricky situation. You might think that no one can hear you scream, but that's not entirely accurate. The thing is, sound needs something to travel through, like air or water. In space, things are super spread out, so all those epic space battles and galactic explosions would be completely silent. Yet there are some places in space with enough particles for sound to travel through. For example, you can hear the black hole at the center of the Perseus galaxy cluster. Another myth is about zero gravity. That's not a thing. There's still some gravity hanging around the International Space Station, about 90% of what we feel on good old Earth. But astronauts get to float around because they're basically free-falling around the planet. And let's be real, Hollywood's version of space travel is not factual. Sure, orbits are a thing, but different altitudes mean different speeds. So moving from one orbit to another isn't exactly a walk in the park. You can't just push yourself in the right direction and hope for the best. You gotta take those orbital velocities into account. This reminded me of the 2013 movie Gravity and how Sandra Bullock tried to survive in space. Hollywood sure added some fuel to these myths. Yet again, who can blame them? Back in 1976, NASA's Viking 1 spacecraft snapped a photo of a curious rock formation on Mars that looked suspiciously like a face. Some folks out there claimed that it must have been proof of extraterrestrial life on the red planet, but NASA had a different take. According to the space agency, the face was nothing more than a bunch of rocks piled up in such a way that the shadows they cast created an illusion of facial features. It turns out it was just a regular hill that got a little too much credit for being photogenic. The solar system stays in place. Lie! It's zooming through space at a speed of 140 miles per second, which means that it's whizzing through the cosmos faster than a cheetah chasing its prey. It takes us 230 million years for the solar system to complete a full orbit around the Milky Way. It's a good thing it isn't getting a speeding ticket, because that would be one astronomical fine. Eh? Without the sun, planets would be pretty chilly. We're talking about temperatures as low as -455 degrees Fahrenheit. Brr. But with the sun around, the planets get to enjoy much more livable temperatures. Of course, not all planets are created equal. Mercury, for example, is the closest to the sun. Venus, on the other hand, is farther away, but somehow manages to be even hotter than Mercury. The distance from the sun isn't the only factor that affects a planet's temperature. Other things like the planet's size and reflectivity also come into play. So Mercury being the hottest planet in our solar system is a false proposition. No, just because it's the closest one to the sun doesn't mean it's the hottest. Even though we've been deceived in some ways, that doesn't make space any less amazing. It's still a vast, beautiful, and utterly fascinating part of our universe. And there's still so much we have yet to discover. Who knows, maybe one day we'll really discover little green people out there. Or maybe we'll find out something even more incredible. Until then, we'll just have to keep dreaming and exploring. There, you got 14 things on our list. Do you have any other space myths to debunk?
Now, can you honestly tell me you have never used your phone while driving? I know, me too. But we both know that it can be dangerous. To help with this, some newer cars have a special feature called a heads-up display. This option shows important driving information in front of you, like speed and directions, so you don't have to look away from the road. It's like a floating screen on the road in front of you. This can help you drive safer and avoid getting a ticket for going too fast. Not all cars are so modern, so to drive safely, you need to put your phone away. Thankfully, some cars have special places for your phone while you're focused on the road. One specific 2021 model, Chrysler Pacifica, has a feature where the second row of seats can be folded down into the floor. It's good for carrying big items, but when the seats are up, these areas are good for storing things out of sight. Just remember to check and clean them out every once in a while, because they can become magnets for all sorts of knickknacks, like French fries or wet swimsuits that will surely start to smell at one point. Keep some cleaning supplies in your car just in case. Are you a science fiction fan? I have some good news for you then. Turns out that flying cars may be closer to us than we think, and it's not just because they look cool. Manufacturers are looking into developing such vehicles for practical reasons too. For starters, our standard roads are getting pretty congested as time goes by. We'll need some other means of transportation in the future to be able to cope with a large number of vehicles. You can find loads of flying car concepts online for all preferences. There's one that looks like a giant drone, and another one like a mini airplane. The simplest designs just took a car and put wings on it. Some cars will light up a snowflake on the dashboard every now and then. In case you're wondering, it's a sensor, and a pretty important one too. It shows the exterior ambient temperature. It gets activated when there's a road warning due to a sharp drop in temperature. It may sometimes even come with an audio warning or a message on your dashboard to inform you that the roads may be getting icy, so you can either adapt the speed or change to the appropriate tires if necessary. Cars these days aren't just adapted for the cold season. They come with cool features to help out during the summer months too. I'm talking about those neat sun visors. Check your car to see if it has this added bonus feature. We know they twist to help the driver out even when they're not driving directly toward sunlight. Some visors can also extend, so they can provide shade to a larger area. If yours can't extend, there's a simple solution. Buy a sun visor extender. You can even find them online. They work by being attached to your existing sun visors or the windows for better shade coverage and visibility. Now, your car might have another hidden feature. Well, it's technically not in the car, but in its tires. These days, some cars come equipped with foam-filled tires. They were created to fix the problem of air-filled ones that often went flat. Why? Well, because foam-filled tires have many of the same benefits as air-filled tires without the danger of leaks. Regular air-filled tires can sometimes lose air over time, even if there hasn't been any damage. In most cars with this feature, the tires are not completely filled with either foam or air. They have a mix of both. A bonus of these modern tires is that they make the cars quieter. Generally, electric cars make less noise, but because of that foam, they end up being as quiet as a cat. Some people like the fact that they're quiet, while others prefer that classic screeching or rumbling that vehicles make. But even people who like the sound of regular engines might like the quietness of these new models because they are still very fast. Hey, I drive one and it's fun. You might have stumbled upon a button called AEB. It stands for Automatic Emergency Braking, and it's a feature that uses sensors to detect if a collision is going to happen really soon. When activated, it will automatically apply the brakes to try and prevent something bad from happening, or make it less severe. There are two types of AEB, one that only works at slow speeds and one that works at all speeds. If the car can't be stopped completely, the AEB system will try to slow it down as much as possible to reduce the impact. Many cars now have systems that can warn you if someone is walking in front of you and can even automatically stop the vehicle to prevent an accident. These systems use special sensors that can also detect bicycles and animals. However, a study found that these systems don't always work well, especially at night. Even if your car comes equipped with this added feature, it's crucial to always pay attention while driving and not rely solely on these systems. A little thing called lane centering assist helps you stay in the middle of your lane when you're driving on the highway. It's not a replacement for paying attention to the road either, but it can help guide you through gentle curves. You'll still be in control of the car and can turn the wheel if you want to go in a different direction. Some systems give you a lot of feedback, while others are more subtle. Lane centering assist can't handle sharp turns, and in most cars doesn't work if you don't have the cruise control on. What's also cool about this feature is that if it senses you've removed your hands from the wheel, it'll give you the warning to return to the correct driving position. A lot of accidents can happen when you're reversing your car, like out of the supermarket parking lot. Parking sensors can help prevent these things from happening by using radar or sound to detect things that the driver might not see from his position. These sensors will make a noise or show a warning on the car screen to let the driver know something is there, like another car or a person passing by. If you're planning to have a road trip, you know how hard it is to adapt to various speed limits throughout the country. Traffic sign recognition is a technology that can help with that. It allows you to know what the speed limit is on the road you're driving on. It uses a camera to take pictures of traffic signs and display them on a screen in your car. This can be helpful if the signs are hard to see or if you miss them while driving. Some cars with this technology can even change their speed automatically based on the signs they see. This technology is mostly found in luxury cars, but it is becoming more common in other types of cars too. The AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety has made studies that show up to 6,000 drivers per year have bad accidents simply because they were too tired. Sure, I would like my car to come with built-in coffee makers or showers to keep me awake on those long days driving, but some do have systems that can tell when a driver is getting kinda snoozy. These systems monitor the movements you make while in the driver's seat. It looks at things like how you turn the steering wheel around and move the car. If it senses you're a bit too tired to move on, it'll make a noise and show a message on the dashboard urging you to take a break. Some of these systems even show a picture of a coffee cup to remind you to stop at the next gas station for a refreshing beverage. Might save your life, too. I bet you're dreaming of traveling deep into space, but I'm just as sure you don't know even half of all those amazing things that are happening in our home solar system. Like ice-spewing volcanoes on Pluto, a potential giant planet lurking on the outskirts of our solar system beyond Neptune, or a giant canyon the size of the United States on Mars. Let's have a look. First of all, let's travel closer to our Sun and see how insanely massive it is. Want some proof? Well, 99.86% of all the mass of the solar system is the mass of the Sun. In particular, hydrogen and helium it's made of. The remaining 0.14% is mostly the mass of the solar system's 8 planets. I live on one of those. Oh, and even though you might not have noticed it, we live inside the Sun. Wait, I didn't mean we're the inhabitants of the red-hot ball of light approximately 93 million miles away. No. The fact is that the Sun's atmosphere stretches far beyond its visible surface, and our planet is right within its reach. In fact, it's the gusts of solar winds from the Sun which create such breathtaking phenomenon as the northern and southern lights. Oh, and while speaking of the solar system, you must know that it's a whopping 4.6 billion years old. Scientists came to this conclusion after they studied the oldest material they could get. I mean, meteorites, of course. The solar system is also breathtakingly vast. You'd have to travel 11 billion miles away from Earth before leaving it. Wow, just think of the frequent flyer miles you'd get. Uranus rotates on its side, and astronomers have no idea how the planet chose such an unusual position. The culprits could be ancient mega-powerful collisions, but so far, it's just a theory. By the way, Uranus is the only planet sitting on its side. Its equator is nearly at a right angle to its orbit. The ocean on Jupiter is larger than any other on the rest of the solar system's planets. But wait, it's not the ocean you think about. The one on Jupiter isn't made of water. It contains metallic hydrogen, and its depth is a staggering 25,000 miles. This is actually almost the same as the circumference of Earth. Volcanoes on Earth are different from those on Pluto, like fire and ice. And I mean it literally. While we have scorching hot lava spilling volcanoes on our planet, volcanoes on Pluto spit ice. When frozen, water expands, and this enormous pressure builds up until one day, bang, the ice erupts. In the process, a new cryovolcano is formed. By the way, as you may remember, Pluto used to be a planet, but this title was taken away in 2006 by some astronomical bureaucrats. Later, Pluto was reclassified as a dwarf planet. But the most unexpected fact about this space body is that its diameter is smaller than that of the US. See for yourself. The greatest distance across the country, from Maine to Northern California, is about 2,700 miles. As for Pluto, it's only 1,470 miles across. Now, even if you're a tiny celestial body, you can still have a moon of your own. In 1993, the Galileo probe was traveling past a miniature asteroid that was no more than 20 miles across. Imagine astronomers' surprise when it discovered that the little thing had a 1-mile-wide moon. Since then, scientists have found tons of moons orbiting minor planets of our solar system. Jupiter's moon, Io, exists in eternal chaos due to hundreds of smoking volcanoes on its surface. If you decided to visit this place, you'd see the smoke from these volcanoes billowing up high into Io's atmosphere. At any given moment, here on Earth, you can stumble across a rock that once came from Mars. After scientists analyzed the chemical content of some meteorites found in the Sahara Desert, Antarctica, and other places all over our planet, they came to the shocking conclusion that lots of those have a Martian origin. In many sci-fi movies about space, the main character accidentally gets into an asteroid belt and has to try hard to get away from countless rocks that threaten to damage their spacecraft. Well, it's nothing like the real thing. The only asteroid belt astronomers know about is located between Mars and Jupiter. There are thousands of asteroids in this region, but they're so widely spaced that the chance of collision is almost zero. Now, beyond the orbit of Neptune, there's a mysterious Kuiper belt filled with massive icy objects. The most curious thing about this space formation, though, is that scientists fail to explain the pattern of its movement. The only explanation they have is that Neptune might be hiding from our sight a ginormous planet. This hypothetical planet has already got the name Planet 9, and all we have to do is wait until its existence is confirmed, or not. Unlike what most people believe, there's water all over the solar system, and someone should wipe it up, huh? For starters, it's a pretty common component of comets and asteroids. You can find water in the shallowed craters of the Moon and Mercury. Mars has some ice at its poles, too. The same goes for smaller members of the solar system, like dwarf planet Ceres or Saturn's moon Enceladus. Astronomers even suspect that Jupiter's moon Europa might have some life. Under its frozen and cracked surface, there's likely to be liquid water. Europa is smaller than Earth, but it may host a giant and deep ocean that could contain twice as much water as all the oceans on our planet combined. Now, you might know that Mercury is the smallest planet in our solar system. It's also very dense, the second densest after Earth. But this mini-planet is getting even smaller and denser. After the Messenger spacecraft did its first orbital mission at Mars and mapped the entire planet, astronomers found out that Mercury is very likely to be a tectonically active planet. On its surface, there are cliff-like landforms, also known as fault scarps. They're quite small, which makes scientists think that they appeared not so long ago. In other words, the planet might still be contracting. Now, look at these magnificent rings. You can say without any doubt that this planet is Saturn. People have known about its rings since the 1600s when the first telescopes were invented. But Saturn isn't that unique. Nowadays, we know that every planet in the outer solar system, Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, and Jupiter, has a system of rings. And since we've started talking about the planets of the outer solar system, let's have a look at Neptune. This ice giant is around 30 times as far from the Sun as our home planet, which means it gets less light and heat from our star. But the planet radiates a lot more heat than it's taking. If we compare Neptune to nearby Uranus, we'll see that even though Uranus is closer to the Sun, it emits almost the same amount of heat as Neptune. Astronomers haven't figured out why it happens yet. One of the most unusual moons in the outer solar system is Uranus's moon Miranda. It has craters, sharp ridges, and other bizarre disruptions on its surface. Such phenomena are usually the result of volcanic activity. But Miranda is way too small to generate such a large amount of heat on its own. Astronomers think that it might be the gravitational pull from Uranus that heats and contorts Miranda's surface. But so far, it's just a theory. And there's no truth to the story that Miranda has a brother moon, Lin-Manuel. Finally, our solar system isn't the only one in the Milky Way galaxy. Far from it. The galaxy we live in houses over 100 billion solar systems. And if it's just our galaxy alone, what can we say about the whole universe? Okay, let's face it, we humans are pretty ordinary. I mean, we're no superheroes with superpowers, right? What, you didn't get the memo? But the animal world has a bunch of superheroes. Some creatures live forever, and those who seem to not care about the laws of gravity. Critters that are immune to venom, and those that can run on water. And some of them will send shivers down your spine. So the first superpower on the list is the ability to live without water. Kangaroo rats can get by without water for years. They actually don't mind living without any water. Humans, on the other hand, can only survive 3 days without water. Human 0, kangaroo rats 1. These little buddies live in extremely arid desert areas and have to get water from the seeds and plants they eat. And although it may sound a bit disturbing, kangaroo rats also know how to extract water from their urine before they set off on a bathroom trip. This way, they don't waste a single drop of precious moisture. Well, that would come in handy at sporting events. Now let me introduce you to the Peter Parker of the animal world. Yep, seems like Spider-Man is real, but not human. Meet a gecko lizard, or simply gecko. This critter has a marvelous ability to climb up all kinds of vertical surfaces and can even go for a walk on the ceiling. This gravity-defying feat is possible thanks to the lizard's unique foot pads covered with tiny hairs. They can cling to almost any kind of surface, no matter whether it's smooth, hard, rough, or soft. One more fun fact about these guys is that they lack eyelids, so they always keep an eye wide open for what's going on around them. If you wonder how they keep their eyes protected, here's the answer. Their eyes are covered with a transparent membrane, the cornea. Sure thing, they can't close their eyes, and if they have something in their eye, they simply lick it off. Right, they clean their eyeballs by licking them. I guess that's another superpower. Any supersonic superpowers here? Sure. A 1-inch long subtropical shrimp disorients its prey with a sonic boom. Despite its modest size, the pistol shrimp is one of the loudest marine animals. When the shrimp snaps its claws, it creates a sound as loud as a sonic boom. Naturally, this sound stuns the prey, and the shrimp can catch it without too much effort. Now, in the comic world, there's Venom. In the animal world, there's a guy that can be called anti-venom. Opossums are known for their handy trick of pretending to have passed away when a predator attacks them. But that's not the end of the story. These guys are also immune to rattlesnake and pit viper venom. The secret is a peptide that helps opossums neutralize dangerous chemicals. This is the reason why snakes are a favorite treat on opossums' diet. There's one curious thing they have on their diet: ticks. One opossum can hoover up about 5,000 ticks per season, and most of them are picked off their own bodies. Now, imagine a fish that is so notorious that it's called a dangerous fish. It's mabenga, and it literally translates to dangerous fish in Swahili. This monster lives in freshwater and doesn't mind having a crocodile for lunch. Not a whole crocodile, but mabenga can take a bite out of them. But to be honest, these guys are intimidated by the crocodiles, the same way the crocs are intimidated by them. Now, you're watching this video on some gadget, right? Well, we all owe the gadgets we have to the electric eels in some way. I mean, all gadgets have batteries, and eels contributed a lot to the invention of an electric battery back in 1800. I know, the batteries have unrecognizably changed since then, but still, the first electric battery ever was invented thanks to electric eels. Anyway, if you see one of them and want to thank them for their magnificent invention, don't do that. Thing is, they can deliver shocks up to 860 volts. You don't want to experience that. Now let's talk about the Count Dracula of the animal kingdom. Nope, I'm not talking about bats. I'm talking about the fanged vampire fish. These fish are known as payara and have two long fangs protruding from their lower jaw. Here's why some people associate them with vampires. Hippos are the beauty gurus, since they know how to save a fortune on skincare. Living under the harsh African sun, these animals secrete a sweat-like red oily substance that evaporates and keeps the animals' bodies cool. Besides, the fluid works as a moisturizer, sunscreen, and antibiotic all in one. But they're not the only ones with such a superpower. Mantis shrimp know how to produce natural sunscreen too, but they use it for eye protection. It's all about amino acid pigments, and these pigments act as special filters that contribute to their sharp vision too. That's what I call multitasking. Meerkats have dark patches around their eyes which makes them look even cuter. But these black circles aren't there just to make these buddies more adorable. They also function as built-in sunglasses. The dark fur on the patches blocks the blazing sun, and as a result, meerkats can gaze directly at the sky. On top of that, the sentry, a meerkat that watches out for birds and other predators, can easily see danger coming and alert its mates. Wild goats are famous for their climbing skills, but the alpine ibex from northern Italy is the champion. This critter can climb nearly any vertical surface, defying several physical laws in the process. Interestingly, the animals that do walk on the steepest cliff walls are typically mother goats with their little ones. Large males prefer to keep their distance and use flat horizontal surfaces. Smart guys. Some animals protect themselves with venom or nasty bites, while others use chemical tricks for protection. Listen to this. Some species of millipedes produce hydrogen cyanide and exude it when they feel threatened. Hydrogen cyanide is odorless but highly toxic. One little millipede can't seriously hurt you, but you may have burns or even blisters if your skin is sensitive. Plus, to make the picture even scarier, some millipedes glow in the dark. So watch out, and if you see a crawling spot of light at night, run away as fast as you can. When the bombardier beetle feels threatened, it sprays scorching liquid from the tip of its abdomen with a loud popping sound. As soon as the beetle senses danger, a chemical reaction starts in special reservoirs in its abdomen. The heat from this process nearly reaches the boiling point and also produces special gas that triggers the ejection. This super protection is usually fatal for the attacking insects. I guess so. Plumed basculus lizards have an uncanny ability to run on water. First of all, their hind feet are equipped with long toes which have fringes of skin that can spread out in the water. As a result, a bigger surface of the lizard's foot comes into contact with water. Then, when it runs on water, it pumps its legs incredibly fast. This creates little pockets of air that prevent the animal from drowning by keeping it on the surface. Now, fleas can be annoying. but it doesn't make them any less amazing. These tiny critters can leap about 50 times their body length. If people could do the same, we would be jumping about 1/4 of a mile into the air. Well, let's try it. The most curious thing about fleas' astonishing ability is that they take most of the power for leaps from their toes, not knees. So, what's your favorite animal superpower? I vote for the kangaroo rat. I don't like standing in lines for the bathroom.
No, you can't see the Great Wall of China from space. It's a cool myth, but it's still a myth and has nothing to do with reality. NASA confirmed it, and now you know it too. Still, the wall is a magnificent place, and you're lucky today. I'm taking you there, so fasten your seatbelts. We're going to China, the biggest Asian country, the third biggest country in the world, and with over 1.3 billion people living there, is still the most populated one, even though India is getting closer and will probably take the first place soon. China is also one of the oldest nations in the world. It has 3,500 years of continuous written history, but the civilization existed long before that. Historians believe that China wasn't populated by settlers that came from somewhere else. The Chinese civilization most likely got formed from local Stone Age people who lived on the territory since the prehistoric period. So no wonder that the country is full of history and ancient landmarks, and I'll show you a couple. We are at the Great Wall. It's over 13,000 miles long, almost 5 times the distance between New York and Los Angeles, or a bit longer than the distance between North and South Poles. This is impressive, even today. Of course, it didn't take a day to build it. In fact, the wall was being built for centuries. Maybe you know that ancient cities had walls around them to protect the locals from the invaders? Yes, Chinese cities had them too. The first Chinese emperor united the country in 220 BC and got a brilliant but very ambitious idea to turn all city walls into one big wall that would defend the country's borders. So the process started. In the beginning, the wall was made of rammed earth and wood. Every next emperor would pick up the big wall project, strengthening and extending it, repairing, but also modernizing construction techniques. Some used brick to build the wall, some moved on to granite and marble blocks. Watchtowers and platforms weren't there from the beginning as well. They were added 19 centuries after the construction started. So the wall is quite inconsistent in terms of material, but it only adds more charm to the construction and shows how much effort and time it took. You can notice that some bricks have writing carved on them. They were left by the workers who were building the wall. The purpose of those writings is quality assurance. They contain such information as location, quantity, and responsible officials. So in case of problems with the quality of materials or constructions, it would be known who was responsible for that. Also, mind that the wall is poisonous. To prevent erosion of the wall by insects, arsenic, a poisonous chemical element, was used in construction. So better not lick it in case you had this weird urge. The construction stopped at the end of the 19th century because the wall lost its strategic and military importance in the world due to technological advances. Walls are way less efficient than they used to be, coming close to zero efficiency. So the construction lasted over 2,000 years, still making it the longest construction project in the world. Unfortunately, today the Great Wall isn't in the best shape. It's estimated that only 8% of the wall is in good condition, and the rest is considerably damaged. Also, around 1/3 of the wall has disappeared without a trace due to both natural erosion and human damage. Also, many bricks were taken away from it in the last century to use in building farms and homes. The wall is being deconstructed stone by stone even today, but this time by tourists. Quite a few of them take a stone as a souvenir. That's a total of a lot of stones, considering that over 50 million tourists visit the Great Wall every year. So we're not taking a souvenir from our today's trip, just preserving the memories. Let's now pay a visit to the Forbidden City. It's an imperial palace that took 16 years to build and was completed 600 years ago. To this day, it's the largest palace in the world. It has 980 buildings and over 8,000 rooms. Why forbidden? Well, centuries ago, ordinary people like you and me couldn't just walk the streets of that town, since it was considered a divine place and was home to the emperor. No one could enter or leave the city without the emperor's permission. Today, the Chinese more often refer to it as former palace, but of course in Chinese. I just can't pronounce that. The designs there aren't random at all. The details reflect the traditional Chinese architecture, and even the colors are chosen with the help of feng shui. The roofs of the city are yellow, which represents the supreme power of the emperor. Most walls and pillars of the city are red, representing fire, earth, and strong support. The floors there are made of so-called gold brick. These are not actual gold, but surprisingly, they are just as valuable. It's very hard to make them, and especially to copy the ancient technique. 2 original tiles from the Forbidden City were sold for 800,000 yuan. It's 115,000 US dollars. You can also see animal statues on roofs. Just like colors, animals have meaning in Chinese culture. Dragons, phoenixes, and lions are the most powerful ones. Dragons symbolize strength and good luck and are crucial for the culture. They appear everywhere, in idioms, legends, astrology, art, and so on. In ancient China, emperors were considered sons of dragons, so it seems like the Targaryens aren't the only ones after all. And ordinary people weren't even allowed to have items with dragons. As for a phoenix, in Chinese mythology, their rare appearance during the ascent to the throne of a new emperor is a good sign of harmony. In feng shui, it's also a symbol of luck, and when used correctly, it's believed to bring positive energy to the house. Lions signify strength and power. They always come in pairs, a male and a female, and they're the guards. The number of animal statues on the roof signifies the importance of the building. The city is made of wood, and without any nails used, they are considered violent, so they aren't welcome. You can imagine that a wooden city is a serious fire hazard. A little fire and the city with a 6th century history will quickly turn to ashes. So, fire prevention is taken very seriously there. The city has a whole bunch of firefighting equipment, and there's even a special fire brigade that knows the whole layout of the city better than their own apartment and watches the city every day. Walking around the city, you can notice something very unusual. No birds are sitting on the roofs here, ever. When it was built, the birds were taken into account, and the engineers constructed the roofs in a particular way to ensure that no bird can land and sit on them. The roof spines are wider than the width of birds' claws, and the slope of each roof is higher. Also, the roofs are made of slippery tiles, so the birds can't land there. What do they have against the birds? Well, this way the city stays cleaner and looks more magnificent. So, there are no birds, but there are over 100 cats in the city. They actually are an important part of this story. Some of these kitties are royal descendants. You see, 2 royal dynasties that lived in the city kept cats. The dynasties later collapsed, but the cats stayed in the city and have lived there ever since. Of course, some stray cats have joined the royalty over the years. But hey, no one minds it, and no DNA test has been made to see who's royal and who's not. After all, they all equally patrol the city, hunt mice, and possibly some stranded birds, and guard the city. So all cats are welcome.
So hi, how about exploring some cool and unusual artifacts from the past? Let's go! Have you ever heard of Chinese magic mirrors? These mirrors were made of solid bronze. They had 2 sides. The front was a shiny polished surface, similar to our typical mirrors. It was the back that did the magic. When bright light fell on the mirror, it looked as if it was transparent, and the pattern on the back of the mirror got projected onto the wall. The backside could have different designs on it, depending on what its creator wanted to depict. Since the mirror was made out of bronze, no one expected this optical illusion to occur. These ancient artifacts date back to 2900 to 2000 BCE. They became popular in China and were produced in large numbers at the time. Eventually, their fame faded away. For centuries, the magic of these mirrors baffled both people and scientists. In the 11th century, Chinese scientist Shen Ku decided to study the mirrors. He conveniently had 3 of them. He was surprised by the ability of the metal to act as if it were transparent. He believed that some tempering techniques created surface wrinkles on the mirror to make it translucent, yet these wrinkles were imperceptible to the human eye. It turns out he was right. Many scientists tried to decipher the open mirrors over the centuries, but remained clueless. Finally, in 1932, William Bragg discovered that Chen-Q had been right about imperceptible surface wrinkles all along. Every once in a while, people open multiple tabs in a browser and come to a point where there's no room for a new tab. Apparently, this had also been happening long before computers and the internet were invented. Meet the 16th century browser. This is a full-size book wheel. It's kind of a custom-made rotating bookshelf. Gregory Hayworth, a specialist in textual science, says that this tool has a system of epicyclic gears. That means that the book wheel has a working principle like a planetary system. One gear rotates around another. The shelves of the device maintain a constant 45-degree incline that holds the book securely as the giant wheel turns. Back then, people used the tool while writing encyclopedias and editions of classical works. In this kind of work, a person has to have many books open simultaneously so that the information from multiple sources can be gathered easily. Italian engineer Agostino Ramelli is the inventor of this piece of early modern machinery. What if I tell you that sponge divers in Greece accidentally found an ancient computer? They pulled out this artifact from a shipwreck near Antarctica Island in 1901. Scientists called it the Antarctica mechanism and labeled it as the first mechanical computer. The machine looks like a hunk of bronze, but it has some kind of mechanism composed of gears and wheels. So, experts first assumed that it was an astronomer's tool. After an X-ray scan, though, they found out that the instrument was far more complex than they thought. The artifact was meant to calculate astronomical positions, track the 4-year cycle of athletic games, and so on. It contained a box with dials on the outside and had an assembly of gear wheels attached. It's still unknown who built an instrument with this level of artistry 2,000 years ago and why this technology was lost. After seeing how sophisticated the device was, scientists accepted that their perception of ancient Greek engineering wasn't really accurate. Professor Michael Edmonds of Cardiff University admits that, based on the knowledge they have, this mechanism shouldn't even exist. Edmonds says the machine is one of a kind, and its astronomical calculations are precise. For him, the Antarctica mechanism is more valuable than the Mona Lisa. In 1929, scholars working in Topkapi Palace Museum in Turkey discovered a map. It became famous for being the oldest map showing the Americas. Perry Rees drew this detailed map on a gazelle skin in 1513. He depicted Europe, North Africa, the coast of Brazil, and several islands, such as the Azores and Canary Islands. The most exciting thing is that he created the map only 21 years after Columbus had set foot in the New World. Well, it was new to him. Perry Rees was a maritime scholar and a successful naval commander leading the Ottoman fleet. Yet, while drawing the map, he relied not only on his expertise in sailing. He created it by assembling and referring to 20 other regional maps, like the Arab map of India, 4 Portuguese maps, and the map of the western parts drawn by Columbus. Yes, the part he got from Columbus raised the heartbeat of many historians. Columbus drew a map during his 3rd voyage to the New World and sent it to Spain in 1498. It's assumed to be lost. Surprisingly, historians can now understand what Columbus noted down by looking at Perry Rees's map. Fun fact, he also drew another world map in 1528. Even though only about 1/6 of this map has survived, it's clear that it described the northwestern part of the Atlantic, the region from Venezuela to Newfoundland, and the southern tip of Greenland. The map also showed Antarctica centuries before its discovery. Historians had to rethink the chronology of history after getting this crazy information. Harry Rees described Antarctica's topography without ice in great detail. In the 1930s, workers found dozens of stone spheres in Costa Rica. Locally, they're known as bolas de piedra, literally stone balls. They were made by a civilization lost in time. What's interesting about these balls is their shape. They are perfectly spherical. How ancient people could make such precise shapes is a mystery. The spheres are of different sizes. Imagine a small one, like a tennis ball. Then put another one next to it, 7 feet in diameter. The largest spheres weighed 16 tons. Archaeologists are sure that these balls are human-made. Yet their purpose remains unclear. Some archaeologists claim that the spheres could represent the solar system or could be inspired by various stages of the sun and the moon. Others say that the stone's placement refers to the houses of chiefs. Most of the stone spheres were sculpted from granodiorite. It's a hard rock similar to granite. Experts believe that ancient people used smaller rocks from the same material as tools to shape these spheres. They also think that sculptors probably heated portions of the stones and then cooled them rapidly. This could have helped them to remove the outer layers of rock. Our next one is an ancient battery set found in Iraq in 1936. The set consists of a ceramic pot, a copper cylinder, and an iron rod. At the top, the iron rod is isolated from the copper by asphalt, and both the rod and cylinder fit inside the mouth of the jar. The copper cylinder isn't watertight, so if the pot was filled with a liquid, it would surround the iron rod as well. Archaeologists focus more on the oxidized iron rod because the vessel just needed to be filled with an acid or alkaline substance to produce an electric charge. After examining this bizarre artifact, an Austrian archaeologist hypothesized that the instrument made use of chemical reactions to generate electrical energy. That's why they likened the instrument to a battery. An ancient civilization might have used it for some kind of electrotherapy. Yet there isn't any electroplated object known from this period. So Koenig's hypothesis was rejected by many archaeologists, but nobody has proven him wrong either. The origin and purpose of the vessel remain unclear to this day. So, want to see the world's oldest art studio? In 2011, archaeologists found 100,000-year-old shells in a South African cave. Those shells were used for paint making. A coating of bright red powder on the inside of a pair of shells is the proof. Archaeologists say they found a complete kit used to produce a pigmented mixture. Now, in a different part of the cave, several paintings were displayed with little price tags on them intended for sale. Nah, just kidding. Although that big one over there would look good over my couch. That's it for today. So hey, if you pacified your curiosity, then give the video a like and share it with your friends. Or if you want more, just click on these videos and stay on the bright side.